Chapter 1282. Prince Imo nodded solemnly. I didn't see anything. Eldest Chin's mouth twitched, and he also guffawed. The Crown Prince and Fourth Duan both need to have their eyes checked, right? Bam! Second Uncle Qiao abruptly slapped the table and stood up, his face flushed from drunkenness. He pointed at eldest young Sir Qin and exclaimed, You're the one who needs to have your eyes checked. What do you want to do? Where's the egg? Where's the egg? There's only an idiot like you. Everyone. Imo Lien face-bombed as she stifled her laughter, unable to restrain it. Second uncle was too comical. He was drunk after 3 cups. She already told him to stop drinking, but he still drank so much. Second young master, Do, hastily walked over and mediated. All right, eldest young master Qin and second uncle of the Qiao family are both a bit drunk. Let's not bother about those balls. Today is the second uncle of the Qiao family's big day. Hey, it's fine if other people have poor eyesight. It's too fake if His Highness the Crown Prince, fourth young Sir Duan, and brother Situ all pretended not to see. Eldest young Sir Qin waved the fan in his hand and said with a grin, How about we wait here for a while and see if it will show its true form? I don't know what you're talking about. Duan Yu resisted the urge to burst into laughter and forcefully lowered the tablecloth. Eldest young Sir Qin reached out to stop him, but Duan Yu immediately kicked out. Seeing that these two were about to fight for no reason, Xiao Zhongbong quickly went up to stop them. Let's talk things out. During this chaotic moment, a white light suddenly flitted past everyone's eyes. It was so fast that they could only see a bit of round fur. That speed was simply comparable to a bolt of lightning. It brushed past eldest young Sir Qin's waist and swiftly leaped onto the roof, disappearing in a few breaths. When eldest young Sir reached out to touch it, a strange smile appeared on his face. Omega Katoku had been sitting at the table without moving from start to finish. Her eyes flickered, and she stood up to walk towards eldest young Sir. Now you see it, right? My jade pendant was stolen. Eldest young Sir looked at Prince Imo and Duan Yu with a sardonic smile. The two shameless fellows shook their heads at the same time. Nope. Ha. Situ laughed awkwardly. Just as he was about to speak, he heard the drunk second Uncle Qiao exclaim, There's really an egg. After a quarter of an hour, the egg appeared. It immediately moved towards its teammates, Imo Lien, Duan Yu, and Situ. Ha! Eldest young Sir Qin applauded with a chuckle. You all see now, right? This young Sir already said that the Crown Prince and fourth Duan should be the ones getting their eyes checked. Duan Yu, the Crown Princess has arrived. At this moment, the 2 guards guarding the small arched door in the front yard saw the Crown Princess's figure flash past. It was as if their brains had short-circuited for 3 seconds before suddenly reconnecting. They hurriedly shouted at the crowd. The young Crown Prince Consort flew over and looked expressionlessly at the crowd. Imo Lien immediately went up to him. Her eyes narrowed into slits. Jojo, are you looking for your husband? I'm not looking for you. I'm looking for the egg. Imo Lien. Duan Yu guffawed and looked at Imo Lien mockingly. Your status is even lower than an egg. Scram. Imo Lien threw him a cold glance. As they spoke, Arbor had already walked up and bent down to pick up the egg on the ground without a ripple of emotion in his eyes. He turned his head and suddenly sent a palm strike over, shouting sternly at eldest young Sir Qin. You hit it? Everyone. Chapter 1284. Looking at the big egg that had hopped on her bed, she raised her small hand and stroked its eggshell very tenderly. The phoenix egg inexplicably felt its hairs stand on end, and its eggshell shook and trembled. A white furry ball abruptly jumped into her arms, holding eldest young Sir Qin's jade pendant in its mouth. Arbor reached out and took it down. She flipped it over and over to examine it, but couldn't see anything special about it. It looked like an ordinary white jade pendant. Are you sure this is some kind of black spirit jade? The egg bounced around and said repeatedly, Of course. Master, inject mystic energy into it and peel off its outer layer. Arbor did as she was told and quickly peeled off the jade pendant's outer layer. revealing a piece of warm white jade half the size of her palm. It emitted a faint silver glow. That egg immediately hopped over and urged, "Master, master, quickly place this piece of black spirit jade on my eggshell." Arbor nodded and threw the black spirit jade onto the egg. In the span of a few breaths, that piece of black spirit jade was sucked into the phoenix egg and disappeared into the air. Arbor tilted her head to look at that egg that was no longer noisy and had become very quiet. She observed it for a while and saw that it didn't move. Only then did she put down the fruit platter in her hands and planned to take a leisurely afternoon nap. After the Chow family finished preparing for second uncle's wedding, they did their best to cooperate with the palace in preparing for her wedding. Arbor was idle again these 2 days. She holed herself up in her room every day to draw talismans, and her talisman arts had improved greatly. On this day, when he was taking a nap, the 12 jade slips that were quietly staying in his spiritual pool suddenly lit up. The 7th jade slip flew out and unfurled, rows of small characters floating on it. The little fellow in her sleep quickly absorbed them all. Arbor abruptly opened her eyes and looked at the hazy, floating muslin above her head. Her gaze was somewhat vacant. Had she broken through to Yellow Level Talisman Master? It hadn't been that long since she broke through to High Rank Talisman Master, but she had broken through to Yellow Level Talisman Master so quickly. This greatly surprised her, but also made her somewhat happy. Being a yellow grade Talisman Master meant that she had already entered the world of Talisman Masters. The current her already had the absolute qualifications to stand in front of everyone and say that she was a great Talisman Master. She rolled over and got up from the bed. Her eyes became clear in an instant. Then, she used her holy sense to look at the newly learned magic charm in her conscious. After advancing to Yellow Grade Symbol Master, only one demonstration talisman floated down. Arbor picked it up and looked at it. It was a deity summoning talisman. Summons a celestial spirit to the world. It can assist in battle for 2 hours. This should be the powerful talisman that the small monk had mentioned earlier. Arbor stood up excitedly and then stood beside the table. He used his spiritual sense to check the talisman spell's hidden jade slip and found that a new talisman spell had appeared. Puppet Charm. As long as the person under the charm gives it a hint, it will obey orders for 7 days. Of course, there was a prerequisite for this kind of charm technique. Her cultivation had to be 3 levels higher than the other party. Otherwise, it was very easy for the incantation to fail, and the consequences of the backlash was something that no talisman master could bear. The appearance of the person under the puppet charm didn't change in the slightest. Their behavior was also no different from that of a normal person. Arbor seemed to be thinking about something. Xiang Yuan's chubby face inexplicably appeared in her mind. Could it be like what she thought? This thought only appeared in her mind for a moment before she cast it aside. Chapter 1285. Xiao Mu carefully read through the contents of that jade slip again and also obtained a piece of information. When the 8th jade slip was opened, she should be able to learn profound level talisman charms. In addition, once she stepped into the profound level talisman master realm, she would be able to draw jade talismans. Drawing jade talismans symbolized a great leap in the great talisman master realm. The talisman power of jade talismans was estimated to be 3 times greater than that of ebony talismans. There was a trace of excitement on the little fellow's face. She picked up the gold-beaded talisman pen, took out 2 ebony pieces, and began to learn how to draw deity-inviting talismans. That demonstration talisman was drawn really well. Speaking of which, who was so considerate to draw a demonstration talisman for her for every new talisman she learned? Arbor immersed herself in drawing new talismans. After stepping into the yellow level talisman master realm, the difficulty of drawing deity-inviting talismans had greatly increased compared to the high-level and mid-level talismans from before. She needed to devote all her attention to it. Soon, she entered a completely selfless state. Wei Ziqin, Xiao Lin, Imo Yin, and the others came to see her one after another, but she didn't notice at all. It was as if she was in a completely vacuum environment, turning a deaf ear to what was happening around her. Drawing this deity-inviting talisman took her all the way until late at night. After failing no less than 30 times, near dawn, Arbor finally succeeded in drawing a deity-inviting talisman. Only then did she let out a long sigh of relief. Holding the deity-inviting talisman, she drew, and comparing it with the demonstration talisman, she felt that there were still a lot of shortcomings. This senior was obviously much more proficient in drawing deity-inviting talismans than her. Although she also began to gradually become proficient after repeated failures, she still somewhat despised herself when compared. Forget it. Let's leave it at that for today. Arbor put away the 2 deity-inviting talismans and rubbed her small, flat stomach. Her nose suddenly sniffed, as if she smelled the fragrance of chopped green onions. Here, a bowl of piping hot wontons. A slender hand held a large blue and white porcelain bowl in front of her. Arbor raised her head and saw that fellow's face leaning over, smiling at her. Arbor picked up the bowl of hot wontons and glanced at him. He took a bite and asked, "When did you get here?" "Sigh, I've been here for half a day." It was just that a certain someone had been immersed in drawing talismans, completely ignoring the outside world. She left her husband to the side and ignored him. Arbor drank 2 mouthfuls of soup and felt his stomach warm up. His big eyes twinkled. "It's delicious. Of course. This is not just a simple bowl of wonton. What's so special about it?" Apart from the delicious taste, the wonton was just the right size to be eaten in one bite. On the other end, the man winked at her. "I put all my love into this. Can't you tell?" Arbor pursed his lips and rolled his eyes. "You're always so talkative." Yin chuckled and rubbed her head. "Jojo, let me tell you something. At daybreak, I will head to Jiaozhong Defense Base. I estimate that it will take about 10 days to get back to the capital." Arbor paused with the spoon in her hand. "Where are you going?" Yin smiled. "It's nothing big, just a routine inspection." "Liar." Arbor puffed up her cheeks and looked at him angrily. "Tell me the truth. What a lousy excuse." She wasn't stupid. Chapter 1286. What's the point of a child being so smart? Yin sighed helplessly. He lifted his hand and placed the little fellow on his lap. Wrapping his arms around her, he said softly, "A bit of trouble has cropped up. Jiaozhong Defense Base's water source has been secretly destroyed by someone. Just like you said before, they've started attacking the water source. You didn't take proper precautions?" Arbor looked at Yin worriedly. "That's a small, remote base, so its defenses definitely can't be as watertight as the large bases around the Kingdom capital. Even little Seven has to fly for about 3 days from the Kingdom capital." Yin gently tucked the strands of hair by her cheek behind her head and smiled with narrowed eyes. "Jojo, don't worry. Hubby will rush back within 10 days. I definitely won't miss our wedding." Arbor cast him a displeased glance. "I'll go with you." "No, that place is too far, and the situation is unclear. It's a bit dangerous." Yin hugged her and said, "Be good and listen." Arbor looked up at him. "If you don't bring me along, I'll secretly follow you." Yin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He looked down at her and said, "So naughty." Arbor reached out and hugged his waist with her small paws. "Let's go together. Why are you so annoying?" Yin looked like he couldn't do anything about her. He leaned his jade-like forehead over and rubbed it left and right. "Annoying, annoying. Let's go together." The Imperial Court issued a cleanup mission for Jiaozhong Base. "There will be many people accompanying me. There's nothing to worry about, Jojo. Just stay here obediently and happily prepare to be my bride. Let's go together." The little fellow's eyes were round and wide as he looked at him with dissatisfaction. Yin couldn't help but be at his wit's end. When this little fellow was stubborn, even 18 horses couldn't drag her back. "I'm just going to take a look at the situation there. Specifically, it's not that dangerous." The little fellow's little eyes couldn't help but sweep up and down his body. He pursed his little mouth and harumphed angrily. His face was taut, and he didn't say anything. Yin was at her wit's end when it came to this little emperor baby. She sighed and reached out to cup her little face. She mumbled, all right, let's go together." He really couldn't dissuade this little fellow. It was too annoying. Arbor jumped down from his body, opened the closet, and took out several pieces of clothes, shoes, and socks that he usually wore. He stuffed them into the bag, threw it over his shoulder, and ran to Emolien. "Let's go." "Emolien, my Jojo, we're leaving at dawn. It's still early." Emolien didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He wrapped his arms around her waist and carried her to the bed. "Let's sleep for a while before we set off." Arbor glanced at him suspiciously. "You didn't sneak away while I was asleep, did you?" The two of them lay in bed with their clothes on. Emolien turned to look at his little wife and shook his head in amusement. "Since I've already promised you, I won't go back on my word." "Humph." Arbor still felt a little uneasy. She reached out her little hand to grab a lock of his long hair and held it tightly in her hand. She snuggled into his arms and found a comfortable position. She cheered softly. "Sleep. Emolien, you're sleeping comfortably." Poor thing. His whole body stiffened as he lay there. His nose was filled with the little fellow's alluring sweet scent. Chapter 12, 87. Amused, Emolien hugged the little thing stiffly and tossed and turned for a while. She didn't know when she fell asleep. While she was in a daze, she could hear the sound of someone talking briskly in her ears. Arbor lifted her heavy eyelids and dazedly opened her eyes to look around. She suddenly discovered that she was surrounded by a vast expanse of clouds and mist. "You're awake." Emolien's amused voice rang by her ears. Arbor's spirits were roused, and she shifted her small body. Only then did she realize that she was sitting on the dragon's back and nestled in Emolien's arms. When she turned her head, she saw many familiar faces. Senior brother Situ, senior sister Liang. "Jojo, you're awake." Liang Qingqing, who was gnawing on a corn cob, gave her a wide grin with 2 corn kernels stuck to the corners of her mouth. "Morning, Jojo." There was also a white fox the size of a small mountain flying next to the dragon. Duan Yu was sitting cross-legged on the fox's head and looked down at the bewildered Arbor with a wave of his hand. The little fellow's gaze swept over, and she couldn't look away. She stared at that large furry fox and extended her small paw. Emolien grasped her paw in his hand at once and swept Duan Yu a disdainful glance. "Stay away, Chestnut." Duan Yu's eyes lit up, and he asked with a grin, "Jojo, do you want to come over and sit?" Arbor blinked and was about to nod in agreement when the golden dragon swung its tail and shot its long body far away. The group of people sitting on the dragon's back all jolted, and they hastily wailed as they steadied themselves. "Fuck, you petty Emolien." Duan Yu pointed forward. "Chestnut, Chestnut, chase." Chestnut strode forward with its chubby legs, and its large body shot forward several kilometers with a kick of its hind legs, closely following Little Seven's speed. This time, Emolien recruited 100 members to accompany her on the cleanup operation at Jiaozhong Base. Every one of them was at least a great mystic cultivator at level 11 or above. There were 4 people with special abilities, and all of them had extraordinary hearing and speed. Among the party, Little Six Zheng didn't participate. Not long after he returned from the Mystic Beast Forest, he broke through to become a great level 10 Mystic Cultivator. Soon after, he returned to the forest and went alone to find a suitable Mystic Beast to contract. Arbor just woke up and turned to ask Emolien, "Have we been flying for a while?" "Fortunately, it's only been an hour." Emolien lowered her head and glanced at the little fellow. "Eat some dry food to fill your stomach first. We can only find a place to stay at night." The little fellow took out the minced meat and cornbread that she always kept in her pocket. After eating 2 of them, she was a little full. "Is the situation at Jiaozhong Base rather serious?" "Yes," Emolien nodded. 4 hours ago, I received a message from a member of the Night Pavilion. There's no more information now. I suspect that he probably met with a mishap." Arbor's small face tensed up as she nodded and said, "It seems there's some trouble." Emolien reached out to rub her small face and whispered to her with a smile, "Don't worry. Besides the 100 great mystic cultivators recruited, I've already instructed the Hidden Night Pavilion to dispatch 3,000 disciples to secretly hurry over here. There shouldn't be any major problems." Emolien looked ahead indifferently. It shouldn't have been long since the entire Jiaozhong base was breached. I think we need to summarize the lessons learned this time and nip the problem in the bud. Chapter 1288. Arbor nodded in agreement. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy could you win 100 battles. Currently, they didn't even know who that organization was and had always been in a passive position. It was indeed time for them to get in touch with them and understand more. The Golden Dragon flew for 3 days and 2 nights on this trip to Jiaozhong Base. During this time, they only rested twice and cooked some food. Occasionally, they would encounter a few blind zombies, but they were quickly dealt with. Arbor didn't need to worry at all. When they were 5 kilometers away from Jiaozhong Base, they could see a group of refugees frantically running toward them. These people should be the survivors of Jiaozhong Base. Compared to the original tens of thousands of people in Jiaozhong Base, there were probably less than 3,000 people who had escaped. Moreover, the most worrying thing was that there might be infected people hidden among them. They could mutate at any time and harm another group of people. After these refugees escaped from Jiaozhong Base, they would definitely rush to the largest base nearby, Rice City Base. However, the city lord of Rice City's fortification might not allow them to enter the city immediately due to safety reasons. That was for sure. It wasn't that the city lord of Rice City Base was selfish. As the city lord, he had to consider his own citizens in all aspects. His priority would definitely be his own base. And if these 3,000 people continued to wait in hunger and fear, who knew what would happen? Little 7, go down. Mo Yin pointed down. It was only 2 to 4 hours of walking from here to Jiaozhong Base. Looking up from here, they could see that Jiaozhong Base seemed to be shrouded in a layer of boundless black fog in the distance. It had completely evolved into a ghost town. Mo Yin pursed his lips tightly and suppressed a trace of anger in his heart. This was the underground organization's provocation. Previously, he had picked 2 of the underground organization's strongholds. One was the underground village, and the other was the large stronghold in the Mystic Beast Forest. After several days, the underground organization began to counterattack, wanting to teach him a lesson. He guessed that this was the reason why Jiaozhong Base had been attacked. There were so many bases in the country. It was impossible for him to pay attention to all of them. For such a small and remote base, their defenses definitely weren't as good as the large fortifications. Even though he had already given the order to pay attention to the water source, there were too many small fortifications that could be taken advantage of. The Golden Dragon descended from the clouds. Prince Mo carried Arbor and, together with 100 great mystic cultivators behind him, jumped down from the dragon's body and landed lightly on the ground. Among the 3,000 refugees, many of them cried out in surprise as they stared with wide eyes at the group of immortals descending from the sky. Wow, Mother, look at the sky. Wow, a big fox is flying. The fox has ascended to heaven. Duan Yu leaped down, and the 7-tailed heavenly fox chestnut turned into a streak of light that instantly vanished into the mystic beast space inside his body. Little golden dragon Yin Shi also circled in the air, swung his dragon tail, and instantly returned to Mo Lian's body. A level 7 mystic cultivator strode out from the crowd of refugees and cupped his fists at Mo Lian and company. He asked with some excitement, You're the great mystic cultivators sent by the Imperial Court to clean up Jiaozhong Base. Mo Lian nodded. MHM, what is the current situation of the Jiaozhong fortifications? Chapter 1289. This one is Lu Yuan, the second manager of the City Lord's estate in Jiaozhong Fortification. The level 7 mystic cultivator side. The City Lord and his wife both passed away in this sudden disaster. At this time, a 7 or 8-year-old boy suddenly rushed out like a calf and crashed headfirst into Mo Lian and Arbor. He repeatedly complained and shrieked, Why did you come so late? My father and mother are both dead. It's all your fault. It's all your fault for coming so late. It's all your fault for being useless. 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 Young sir. Lu Yuan hastily strode forward with an awkward expression and dragged over the kicking and crying boy. He apologized to Mo Lian with a wry smile. This is the City Lord's estate's young sir. Everyone, I'm truly sorry. This child suffered quite a bit of shock because of his parents' deaths. Arbor indifferently glanced at the child. Suddenly, she shook her small hand, and the pitch-black crow, repeating crossbow's muzzle aimed at the 7 or 8-year-old boy. Lu Yuan jumped in fright and hastily reached out to grab the boy with his sleeve. He repeatedly retreated several steps with the boy in horror. "And no, what are you doing?" "This, miss, why it's our young sir who spoke wildly and didn't know his place. Be please spare his life on account that he's just a child. You think I want to kill him because he scolded me?" Arbor gazed indifferently at that second manager, Lu Yuan. She only felt that this person was very laughable. Although she wasn't a good person, she wasn't so narrow-minded. There is only one reason for her to take action. This child has been infected. Look at his eyes. Based on the extent of his mutation, he'll completely lose his rationality in less than 16 hours. As soon as she said this, the crowd instantly fell silent. Everyone silently retreated in unison, their eyes suffused with traces of horror. The second manager of the city lord's estate, Lu Yuan, also unwittingly loosened his grip. Then, as if he thought of something, he hugged the child and repeatedly shook his head at Arbor. No, it can't be like this. This, miss, you must have seen wrongly, right? You're lying to yourself." Arbor's crow, repeating crossbow, was ready to fire. He frowned and said, "Get out of the way. Don't be soft-hearted." "No, I won't back down." The second steward, Lu Yuan, did not know what he was thinking. He only knew that, deep in his heart, there was a conviction that supported him. He absolutely had to protect this orphan of the city lord's mansion. He had to protect him. "You can't protect it." Arbor's voice was cold. "Even if you keep him for a few hours now, once the time is up, he will completely mutate. There is no medicine that can cure him." "No, there's hope. Miss, since you are so resourceful, you must be able to save him, right?" Arbor shook his head helplessly. "It's hopeless. At least for now." There was nothing she could do. Everyone who was infected and mutated could only watch as he walked step by step into the abyss of death. There was no other way. "No." The second steward, Lu Yuan, hugged the boy tightly and retreated step by step. But the group of refugees beside him did not let it go. Seeing that he wanted to shrink back into the crowd, everyone parted to the sides. They couldn't help but mutter, "Second steward, don't harm others." "That's right, that child is hopeless. You can't harm all of us for him." Lu Yuan abruptly turned his head and glared at the crowd. Chapter 1290. Don't forget who sacrificed themselves to save so many of your lives. Don't forget who it was that helped you all stall for time so that you could escape from the city. It's the city lord and madam. They led 2,000 death warriors and fought with their lives on the line against the corpse puppets. That's why all of you were able to escape from the city and save your lives. Now, you people want to repay kindness with enmity and send the only orphan of the city lord's mansion to his death? His powerful words made everyone look at each other in dismay. Some people instantly felt a sense of shame in their hearts. However, the young lady said that the young master will mutate in 16 hours? You believe what others say? Lu Yuan said angrily. If we watch the young master get killed today, are we still human? Arbor tilted his head, and his cold gaze landed on the second manager. Even if you get bitten by him and get infected, you don't care? Lu Yuan held the little boy's shoulders tightly and swallowed his saliva. "No, I don't care." Xiao Mu's gaze followed this person's face before sizing him up from head to toe. "You seem a bit strange." "What do you mean strange?" "You have ulterior motives towards him." Arbor looked at the manager coldly. The second manager shuddered. Under the pressure of that gaze, his legs went soft, and he almost fell to the ground. Arbor glanced at him, but didn't say anything. He put away the crow, repeating crossbow, and pulled Emolien's hand. "Let's go." This young lady, may I ask, what do we do?" "Didn't you want to go to the Rice City fortifications?" Arbor glanced at them indifferently. "Continue." A few grumbles came from the crowd. "Didn't you come to save us? Why didn't you arrange for us to go to the Rice City fortifications?" That's right. If we go to Rice City's fortifications, we definitely won't be able to enter their gates. We'll have to wait for a period of inspection. Wouldn't it mean that we'll be starving outside the city for a few days? Emolian glanced at them with a half-smile. Isn't this a normal procedure? Just do as I say. It won't take up much of your time. Right now, shouldn't you all be rejoicing that you were able to escape? Liang Qingqing sneered. She crossed her arms and looked at the burly men who were chattering away. A bunch of grown men, chattering like women. If you have so much energy, you should kill a few more zombies. Don't always think about asking others for selfless help. It's as if the whole world is your mother. We don't owe you anything. Hilarious. Everyone had risked their lives to rush to Jiaozhong Defense Base, and the rewards weren't necessarily that great. Let's go. Everyone followed after Emolian and the others in Arbor. For some reason, the little boy in Lu Yuan's arms had been glaring at Xiao Mu with a hateful gaze. When Arbor walked past them, the little boy jumped up. That boy actually jumped up and pounced on Xiao Mu like a crazed tiger cub, opening his mouth to bite her arm. You're looking to die. Emolian jumped in fright. She didn't expect the little boy to have such a strong desire for revenge. Chapter 1292. Serves you right. Arbor expressionlessly tossed him these two words with a stoic face. She then pattered forward with small steps. Eldest young Sir Qin's face darkened as he glared at several nearby team members who were secretly snickering. Emolian chuckled and quickly chased after his little wife. Jojo walked slower. There's no rush. Arbor was rather anxious. She wanted to see the extent of the damage done to Jiaozhong Fortification. How exactly did the underground organization attack the water source? The group set off on foot, other than that superhuman with abnormal hearing who had some difficulty following the group at high speed. Everyone else walked very easily. Everyone set off for Jiaozhong Base. In less than 2 hours, they saw Jiaozhong Fortification City Gate standing not far away. More than 30 brainless zombies were wandering in front of the city gate. When they smelled people approaching, they all turned their heads and looked at Arbor's group with flickering red eyes. Everyone, be careful. These are all level 4 zombies. Arbor instructed. She moved the crow, repeating crossbow in her hand, and an arrow pierced straight through the head of one of the zombies. After the arrow pierced through the first zombie, it then pierced through the head of a second zombie that was pouncing over. One arrow exploded 2 zombies. The crow gold arrow circled in the air before returning to the crow, repeating crossbow with a whoosh. When the others saw this, they immediately refused to be outdone. They all flung out their mystic energy at the several dozen wandering zombies from afar. Dense white mystic energy instantly struck the zombies one by one. After evading the first wave of mystic energy, a few zombies were immediately blasted into smithereens by the second wave of mystic energy that pounced on them. This battle was basically a one-sided purge. After the 30 or so zombies of the city gate were all cleaned up by the 100 great mystic cultivators, everyone followed Emolian and Arbor into Jiaozhong Base. More than half of the Jiaozhong Fortification's gatehouse had already collapsed. Broken stones mixed with mud were piled up in a corner. As soon as he entered, he saw a woman who was missing half her head sitting at the city gate. She was hugging a child who was missing half of his body. How pitiful. A female mystic cultivator sighed and walked toward the mother and son. Don't go there. Following a stern rebuke, the woman, who had been sitting stiffly, suddenly opened one of her eyes. She let out an ear-piercing shriek and pounced at the female mystic cultivator. Whoosh! The black gold arrow pierced through the woman's head. At the same time, the female mystic cultivator also reacted extremely quickly and threw out a mystic energy. Soon after, she pounced on the child that the woman was hugging. The child was missing half of his body, but had opened his eyes. Mother and son were simultaneously pierced by the black gold arrow and mystic energy. They rolled to the side and finally stopped moving. The female mystic cultivator exhaled and turned to nod at Arbor. Thank you. These corpse puppets are gradually developing intelligence, Liang Qingqing said with a cold expression. They're starting to learn how to hide or disguise themselves and wait for an opportunity to attack us. Be careful. We don't know what else is inside. Situ, he raised his head to look at the nearby sky with a heavy gaze. He kept feeling that there was something else within the pitch-black fog that shrouded the fortification. Chapter 1293. The group composed themselves and walked into the city. There were scorch marks everywhere. Walking on the empty street and listening to the orderly footsteps of his team, he felt a little creeped out from the bottom of his heart. This place was unreasonably quiet. It made them feel like there were many pairs of eyes quietly watching them from the shadows. Liang Qingqing suddenly turned around, and her sharp gaze vigilantly swept over the corner of the wall. There was nothing there, but she clearly felt like she was being watched just now. Was it a misconception? The entire fortification exuded a rotten stench. This was already an empty city, but there must have been a large number of zombies gathered here. The best solution was to get rid of them together to prevent these things from escaping and harming the nearby fortifications. For example, the nearest large fortification, Rice City. The group followed closely behind the main group. After walking for about 5 minutes, they actually did not find a single zombie. This is a bit fishy, Liang Qingqing muttered to herself. How is it possible that we haven't seen a single zombie after walking for so long? Where do you think they've all gathered? Unless there's a place or something in the city that's attracting them. Otherwise, it's impossible. Mo Lien stopped in his tracks, and everyone else also stopped in succession. When they followed his gaze and looked over, everyone was startled one after another. They saw a huge black skull in front of them. Although it was formed from dense fog and did not seem like it would cause much harm to people, its mouth was wide open. It seemed like it was waiting for prey to enter on its own. Emolien's group stopped when they reached the skull's mouth. They felt like they would be swallowed by the skull's mouth if they walked any closer, so they couldn't help but feel a bit strange. Aside from this, there were 2 small alleys on the side that they could pass through, but they looked dark and had no end in sight. Their line of sight was obscured by the black fog, so it was a bit blurry, making it even harder to walk. Everyone turned their gazes to the Crown Prince, waiting for his decision. Duan Yu raised his hand, and a luminous pearl swiftly flew into the skull's mouth, illuminating the surroundings with a sizzle. Everyone's line of sight widened greatly at once. However, there was no skull in front of him. In fact, it was the City Lord's mansion. The mouth of the skull corresponded to the gate of the City Lord's mansion. It was quiet all around, without a single corpse puppet wandering around. Everyone looked at each other and simultaneously asked the Crown Prince with their eyes, "Enter." The Crown Prince nodded. "Let's go in and take a look." The group followed behind him and walked towards the main entrance of the City Lord's mansion. Liang Qingqing suddenly turned her head and looked behind her warily. However, other than his teammates, there was no one else. But where did that extremely uncomfortable feeling of horror come from? Liang Qingqing frowned. This City Lord's estate was located at the centermost location of the entire city district. Now that Duan Yu used the illuminating pearl to illuminate the surroundings, it was as if it was daytime. The illuminating pearl's range was extremely wide, and it could last for a long time. Therefore, they would be able to see their surroundings clearly for at least an hour. Everyone could only hear the light sound of their footsteps touching the ground. Other than that, the surroundings were completely silent. Just like that, under Emolien's lead, the group entered the main hall of the City Lord's mansion and walked through the corridor towards the backyard. Chapter 1294. At the same time, the Fan Clan's Fan Xiaoming welcomed 3 uninvited guests. In the middle of the night, these 3 people appeared in his bedroom as if they had entered an uninhabited area. Although he was badly frightened, he still looked at them calmly. Who are you?" A voluptuous and enchanting woman walked forward. She looked to be in her early 20s, and her red lips were painted so brightly that they looked like the color of blood at first glance. "I heard that the Fan Clan's little brother also went to the Mystic Beast Forest secret realm last time." Fan Xiaoming's heart trembled, and his body inexplicably trembled. He looked at the woman's group with some alarm in his eyes. The fact that these 3 people could silently infiltrate their Fan Clan without being discovered by anyone in the Fan Clan showed that their cultivations were clearly higher than everyone in the Fan Clan. If he didn't answer the woman's question properly, Fan Xiaoming felt that he might not be able to see tomorrow's sun. With this thought, he nodded obediently to the woman. Yes. The woman giggled, and her soft hands climbed up Fan Xiaoming's shoulders. She half leaned on him and said with a smile, "Elder sister wants to ask you something." Elder sister heard that there's an extremely precious Xuanji core in this mystic beast forest secret realm. Did anyone obtain it? Fan Xiaoming reflexively shook his head. The woman immediately turned hostile and mercilessly slapped his face. Her expression was somewhat cold as she said, "Think carefully before you speak." Fan Xiaoming only felt the pain on his face, and his entire body shuddered. He hastily shook his head and said, really didn't. Not long after we entered that secret realm, the entire secret realm collapsed. How could anyone obtain? Halfway through his words, he seemed to have thought of something and paused. The woman's eyes brightened, and she propped an arm on Fan Xiaoming's shoulder. She asked in a coaxing tone, "Little brother, you have to think carefully. This matter is of great interest to you and your clan." Bang. Fan Xiaoming's door was suddenly kicked open by someone. Fan Xiaoming looked at the door in surprise and saw his elder brother standing there with a cold expression. His gaze fell on the three people in the room. I didn't expect that there would be someone in the Fan clan who could sense our aura." The woman giggled and winked at Fan Xia, who had appeared at the door. "You visited the Fan clan at night, just to ask about the whereabouts of the Xuanji core?" Fan Xia asked with a cold face. "That's right. Could it be that you know?" The woman looked at him suspiciously before shaking her head. "With your age, it's impossible for you to enter the mystic beast forest secret realm. Xiaoming, tell them the truth." Fan Xia looked up at his younger brother and secretly gave him a look. Fan Xiaoming seemed to have thought of something. He nodded and said, "Before the mystic realm collapsed, there was only one person who entered Senior Xuanji's small house. However, we don't know whether she has obtained the Xuanji core or not." Fan Xiaoming added, "Oh, who is it?" There was a hint of excitement in the woman's eyes, and her entire body was stretched taut. "Crown Princess." The woman's eyes flickered, and her large, blood-red lips curved in a smile. "It looks like we still have to make a trip to the palace." "No need." Fan Xia's eyes flickered as he shook his head. Chapter 1296. Arbor didn't know that a sizable storm was approaching her. She followed the group of people and wandered around the City Lord's mansion before following the crowd to the main hall of the City Lord's mansion. "It's very strange." Liang Qingxing scratched her head and said, "Why haven't we seen anything after walking around in such a big circle? Could it be that we came too late? All the zombies have already escaped from Jiaozhong Fortification? Impossible. If that's really the case, then how do we explain the thousands of villagers? They would have long been torn apart and devoured by the zombies that caught up." Mo Lian's eyes flickered, and she happened to meet Arbor's gaze when she turned her head. The two of them nodded at the same time. Mo Lian turned to instruct everyone, "Look around. There might be a secret passage here." That Lu Yuan said that it was the city lord and madam who led 2,000 loyalists and risked their lives to buy some time for the citizens to escape. But there wasn't a single zombie in the city lord's estate right now. Unless there was a secret passage, how else could this strange situation be explained? Hence, everyone spontaneously dispersed and knocked around the surroundings to search for a secret passage. After searching the main hall, they continued to search inside and circled the city lord's estate again before finally gathering next to a dry well in the backyard. Someone had used several huge rocks to firmly press down the well's mouth. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, and they all had their own guesses. This well's mouth is narrow, but some of these level 5 zombies are comparable to great mystic cultivators, so it's not like they can't push these huge rocks away, Mo Lian said in confusion. "Unless there are no zombies in this well at all." Duan Yu pursed his lips and kicked at a rock. "We'll know once we open it." Several mystic cultivators stepped forward and helped Duan Yu remove several boulders from the mouth of the well, revealing a pitch-black opening. "Be careful." Arbor threw out a Krogold arrow and shot the chest of a zombie that suddenly wanted to jump out of the well. That thing crashed heavily on the ground before quickly moving again. Its hands were twisted as it supported itself on the ground. Its head was half drooping as it stretched out its half-missing neck and flicked out a long tongue. It looked extremely disgusting as hell. The female mystic cultivator quickly added a burst of mystic energy to that zombie's head and flung it several meters away before it rolled heavily into a corner. Everyone was disgusted by this thing and averted their gazes in disdain. However, just as everyone was about to enter the well, that zombie that was originally flung motionless in the corner suddenly twisted and turned its tattered body, strenuously trying to pounce into the crowd. Why isn't it dead? The female mystic cultivator was alarmed and furious. Just now, her profound energy had clearly landed on its head, and according to common sense, this corpse puppet should be thoroughly dead. However, it was completely fine and could still move stealthily on the ground. Albeit, as to make us everyone turned their heads, but Arbor looked coldly at the rotten head that had fallen down. His eyes moved slightly and fell on the small crystal the size of a grain of rice that had fallen out of the mucus in the head. What is that? Duanyu walked up and picked up that grain of rice before turning back to look at Arbor. It's a crystal core. Chapter 1297. Crystal Core. This was the first time everyone heard that a crystal core could form in a zombie's head. Wasn't that something only mystic beasts had? Arbor's expression was especially grave. Zombies with crystal cores in their heads only appeared 2 years after she trained with a huge bear squad in her previous life. At that time, she should have been 18 years old. This meant that zombies had surpassed elementary level 5 3 years in advance and reached the standard of intermediate level zombies. Some of them had enough intelligence and could play some low-level and immature schemes with normal people. Arbor took out a bag and pattered to Duanyu's side, having him throw this lustrous green crystal into the bag. Duanyu's mouth twitched. It's useful. Arbor shook her head. She really wasn't sure if it was useful or not. In her previous life, she was captured by Fan Shoha not long after the crystal appeared in a zombie's head, so she didn't have time to properly study this thing's use. With the mentality of not wasting it, she planned to collect it first. Go down the well. Everyone circled the well and threw in a match. However, the well was quite deep, and the match disappeared after a long time. Arbor glanced at Emolien. I'll go first. Everyone hastily stopped her. Wait, I'll go first. In this kind of situation, us men naturally have to take the lead. The mystic cultivator with the broad axe holstered his large axe behind his waist. He dug out a cumbersome set of armor from his inner world and equipped himself from head to toe. Only his eyes and mouth were exposed as he grinned at everyone. Big Brother Axe, be careful, Arbor warned with a stoic face, but everyone was thunderstruck by her Big Brother Axe. Brother Axe nodded and turned his wristband, covering his body with a transparent protective shield. The level of his defensive mystic weapon wasn't too high, but it was enough to deal with the bites of a few scattered zombies. Moreover, he was fully prepared. Zombies couldn't bite through such a thick armor at all. Take this. Duanyu tossed him a stick with a luminous pearl fixed to the top. It was probably a lighting tool he made himself, so there was no problem with lighting up a small area. Brother Axe nodded and took it. He placed the luminous pearl stick on his waist and then took a deep breath. He leaped to the mouth of the well and slowly slid down vertically. His speed was not too fast. There was a circle of people surrounding the well, ready to attack. If a zombie pounced out, they would be able to rescue it in time. About 5 minutes later, Brother Axe landed at the bottom of the well. He swiftly killed 2 zombies that pounced on him. Then, he shouted to the top of the well, "Come down, there aren't any zombies here." With a swing of his axe, he chopped off the head of a small corpse puppet hidden in the dark. After rummaging through the corpse, he didn't find that kind of crystal nucleus, so he gave up. At this time, everyone had already slid down the well. They looked at the passageway in front of them, which was wide enough for one person. Huff, huff, huff. The torches were ignited, and for a moment, the entire passageway was illuminated as if it was daytime. Many corpse puppets were lying motionless in the tunnel. Arbor collected those tiny crystal nuclei as she walked. Let's go. Everyone caught up with the group and vigilantly looked around. Suddenly, Imol Yin lightly tugged on her small hand. Xiao Mu stopped in her tracks and looked up. Not far from the end of the passageway, a figure had appeared at some point. 5 chapters first. I'll be busy again these next few days. There are still 5 chapters at night. Chapter 1298. However, that figure was like a ghost, disappearing in the blink of an eye. A female mystic cultivator shrieked and reflexively wiped her eyes. He's gone, pretending to be mysterious. Arbor flicked a silver needle forward with a flick of her finger. Ding! A light sound was heard. The silver needle actually fell to the ground as if it had collided with a wall. Everyone was slightly shocked. From where they were, they could clearly see that the path ahead was empty and there were no walls or anything like that blocking the way. This is a bit interesting, eldest young Sir Chin said with a chuckle as he waved a fan in his hand. Say, do you think we really encounter ghosts? Arbor glanced at him and suddenly said, You go. The eldest young Sir looked at her pitifully. Why am I the vanguard? Arbor glanced at him coldly and said reluctantly, You're awesome. Eldest young Sir Chin blinked and immediately put on a radiant expression. Really? You really think I'm awesome? Okay, then I'll go. Eldest young Sir Chin walked forward smugly, as if he had received the greatest glory. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. When they turned around, they saw Prince Mo and 4th young Master Duan, both revealing disdainful expressions and rolling their eyes in unison that a small chick with cyan feathers landed on Arbor's shoulder. Arbor glanced at Mo Yin from the corner of her eyes and explained in a rare effort. Let him be the coolie and open the way. Duan, you know what to do. This little fellow was becoming more and more adorable. This explained why she had praised that eldest Chin before, right? The eldest young Sir didn't understand, but he was quite cheerful. Not long after he walked up, he paced back and forth beside that invisible wall. Suddenly, he slapped out a burst of mystic energy on that wall. However, that wall was as soft as cotton, sucking in his palm until it caved in. Then it fiercely rebounded. Eldest Chin wasn't slapped away by the wall. Instead, he leaned slightly to the side and forcefully tore the wall in front of him with both hands. Following a light, tearing sound, a hole was torn open in the wall. Eldest Chin narrowed his eyes slightly and released several bursts of mystic energy with a swing of his hand, knocking the 3 zombies that suddenly pounced over to the ground. Everyone concentrated their firepower and blasted the dozen or so zombies behind the invisible wall into pieces within minutes. Then he stepped on the corpses on the ground and walked over. Arbor held a pair of copper tweezers and bent down to pick up a small amount of crystal nuclei. Occasionally, he would be disgusted by the wide-eyed corpse hag on the ground and raise his hand to pat his chest. The group successfully passed through the tunnel. Not long after, they saw a light coming from the opposite side. Speaking of which, this passageway was actually not very long. After walking for about half a cup of tea's time, they had almost reached the end. Eldest Chin extended his hand to stop everyone. He tilted his head slightly and sniffed. Do you smell anything? What kind of smell can it have? The stench of decay. Duan, you harumphed. Don't tell me you're scared. Me? Scared? Eldest young Sir Chin couldn't help but feel exasperated. He glanced sideways at Qin Xian and said, There's nothing in this world that I, Qin Xian, am afraid of. Duan Yu replied with a chuckle before pointing ahead. Open the path. Eldest young Sir Chin reluctantly stepped forward. Just as he was about to squeeze out of the tunnel, he heard 2 roars. He hastily retreated a step and dodged to the side of the tunnel. 2 sturdy zombies leaped in from the tunnel, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws at the people in front of them. Chapter 1299. Ugly. Arbor shot an arrow at that zombie at close range. The crow gold arrow pierced through the zombie's head, but didn't damage its crystal core, so it still pounced at Duan Yu's face. You're courting death. Duan Yu decisively took out a small and exquisite gun and fired at that zombie's head. Boom! The zombie's head immediately caught on fire. After it burned to ashes, a green crystal core, slightly bigger than a grain of rice, dropped out. Arbor picked it up with a pair of tweezers and tossed it into the sack. He then turned to shout at Eldest Cheen, who was hiding at the side of the tunnel. "Clear the way. Everyone!" Eldest young Sir Cheen shook his head exasperatedly and waved the fan in his hand as he lamented with a sigh. "How did I end up with a little thing like you?" Eldest Cheen's figure flashed, and after tearing apart the other transparent wall covering the tunnel, earth-shattering hissing and roaring mixed with several shrieks instantly flooded into everyone's eardrums. Eldest Cheen was startled, and after a moment of hesitation, he crawled out of the tunnel. Subsequently, he extended his hand, and Eldest Cheen blocked Duan Yu and the others with an unsightly expression. "I'm telling you, if you return the way you came, there might still be time." "Eldest young," Sir Cheen murmured softly. Arbor pushed aside Eldest young Sir Cheen's blocking body and was startled when he crawled out of the tunnel to take a look. Duan Yu, Mo Yin, Situ, Liang Qingqing, and the others also walked out. When everyone clearly saw the scene before them, they all gasped. There was a small plaza in front of them, and there was a torch-shaped circular platform in the center with a statue of the city lord placed on it. However, countless people were crawling on top of it at this moment, probably more than 1,000 of them. They were intertwined together like twisted dough, and the people on top were stepping on the heads of the people below. Everyone was finding a place to cling to tightly and doing their best to climb up. However, there was even a pot-bellied old man hanging from the top of that statue's head, swaying in the air with a pale face. When he saw that the crowd below was still endlessly climbing up, the old man couldn't help but shriek, "Don't push up! Don't push up!" He was pushed by the crowd below, and his body tumbled down from the top of the sculpture. On the round platform stood a circle of mystic cultivators and body cultivators who were on the verge of exhausting their mystic energy. Unable to even take care of themselves, they simply didn't have the strength to reach out and grab the falling old man. Everyone watched as he fell off the base of the statue and was torn into pieces by a group of roaring corpse puppets. In just a few seconds, he was reduced to a bloody mess. Oh my God! Liang Qingqing was used to seeing big scenes, but at this moment, she couldn't help but tremble slightly. As far as the eye could see, there were tens of thousands of corpse puppets. Mo Yin was also a little shocked, but she didn't show the same panic as the others. Previously, when Bailon City was besieged by tens of thousands of zombies, at the very least, they still had their unstoppable city walls and tens of thousands of citizens as their backing. But now, their team only had about 100 people. It was definitely unwise to fight head-on. It seemed like the only option was to retreat first. "Retreat," Mo Yin shouted. Everyone made a prompt decision and turned to run into the tunnel. However, at this moment, those despairing people on the round platform had already discovered them, and they immediately shouted, "Save us! Don't go! Don't go!" Arbor looked back and saw two body cultivators holding heavy swords tumbling down from the round platform due to lack of strength. Chapter 1300. "No, I beg you, don't go. Have a benevolent heart and save us." "Jojo, let's go." Duan Yu tugged at her, and the group sprinted up the passageway at full speed. They used a speed at least 3 times faster than when they came. When they saw the well opening not far above them, a bright light suddenly flashed at the opening of the well. Duan Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he was just about to reach out to grab Arbor when Mo Yin pressed him to the ground and ordered sternly, "Get down." Boom! A huge tremor suddenly resounded in the narrow passageway. It instantly caused everyone's ears to buzz, and their faces turned pale. Someone had blown up the well opening. The collapsed rubble rolled down and instantly blocked half of the passageway. If they hadn't crawled up and retreated several dozen meters, some of them would probably have been buried alive. Damn it! Viciousness flitted across eldest young Sir Cheen's eyes. The huge tremor attracted a portion of the zombies outside. However, the passageway was narrow, so the zombies couldn't pass through in large batches. Every time one of them came in, they would take care of it. Arbor's dark eyes gazed at the zombies blocking the passageway. "Duan Yu. Okay, use firearms." Previously, they were worried that using large firearms would cause the passageway to collapse, but since it had already collapsed, it didn't matter if they blew it up again. Duan took out a sparkling emerald bead from his sleeve and abruptly flicked it into the air. Then he took out a green bamboo tube from his waist and opened the back cover, abruptly sucking the emerald bead into it. Retreat. Everyone simultaneously retreated at Mo Lien's command. At the same time, Duan finger abruptly twisted open the mechanism at the end of the bamboo tube. With a light press, a green light instantly exploded. After a ray of light shot out, it landed at the feet of the zombie horde outside, triggering a huge boom before exploding into large patches of flames. Arbor's eyes lit up, and she rummaged through her inner world. She also took out a small box and took out the 9 jade heavenly thunder that she had confiscated earlier. Wait, we'll use it when we reach the zombie horde. Duan winked at her before waving his hand and saying, "It seems there's no way out now. We'll kill our way out. There must be a way out at the back of this plaza." Everyone gritted their teeth and charged out with him. Due to the might of the 9 jade heavenly thunder, one side of the small round platform had sunk into a sea of flames, and many zombies roared and struggled. But this fire also spread to the people on the round platform sculptures. Due to the heat of the fire, the mid and low-level mystic cultivators on the round platform who were barely resisting the zombie army were still fine, but the people hugging the bronze sculptures were a bit miserable. Tease, and felt T, and fell. Wave the wave, T-tess. Below, there was a sea of corpses, and all the zombies raised their crooked arms, attempting to pull those normal people off the sculptures. Arbor released Qingwan and flew up. It spat out a mouthful of ice, and several hundred zombies were pierced by sharp ice blades. But even if they had ice stuck to their heads or bodies, most of them were still able to move freely. They swayed their bodies and ran crookedly toward Arbor. Qingwan had just flapped its wings and flew up when it saw a thick fog rolling toward it. Chapter 1301. A heavy gravity tugged at it, causing it to abruptly plummet downwards. Screech, screech, screech. Student Qingwan angrily steadied itself and abruptly flew over the heads of the shrieking zombies. There's something strange about this place. Master, I can't fly high. It's fine. Let me go to the round platform. Jojo, Mo Lien, anxiously flew up when he saw this little fellow actually heading towards the statue. However, in less than a second, he also felt his body sink as he was abruptly pulled down by a force of gravity. Duan raised his hand and beheaded a zombie that was pouncing at Mo Lien. Afterwards, he shouted at him, "Go watch over her. I'll stop her here." Mo Lien nodded and didn't say anything else as he dashed towards the round platform. However, due to gravity, his feet practically brushed past the zombies' heads, and a corner of his robe was torn by the zombies' rotting hands. It shattered with a ripping sound. When he strode to the base of the statue, next to Arbor, his face involuntarily darkened when he looked down. His perfectly fine white robe had been torn to shreds by those beasts. Arbor held the jade heavenly thunder in his hand as he turned to the other side of the round platform. His eyes flickered with faint excitement as he fired a shot at the group of zombies. Boom! After a loud sound, the burning zombies rolled all over the ground, severely affecting a large area. At this time, a young, exhausted female mystic cultivator's eyes abruptly flashed with a venomous glint, and she abruptly struck Arbor's back. Die! Callie. Mo Lien's gaze had always been on his little wife and had never landed on anyone else. At this time, he was also the quickest to react. When he saw that crazy female mystic cultivator was actually attacking Jojo from behind, he swung his palm across the air and heavily slapped the other party's face. That female mystic cultivator called Callie cried out in alarm and almost tumbled off the round platform. If it weren't for the two strong teammates beside her pulling her back, she would have already fallen down and become a feast for the zombies. Callie's venomous gaze fell on Mo Lien. That damn gigolo actually dared to hit her. She yelled angrily at Mo Lien and Arbor. You could have attacked just now. Yet, he thought of abandoning us and running away. Now, he must have been forced to retreat. How could he hide such a powerful firearm? What a pair of bitches. Emollien's hand that was holding Arbor stiffened. Damn, this was the first time someone called him and Jojo a pair of bitches that Arbor blinked, not understanding why the woman was so angry. Her indifferent voice sounded, "You are not my teammates." Everyone on the round platform, who was filled with righteous indignation, was slightly stunned when they heard this. Then, as if someone had hit them on the head with a hammer, they all became a little listless. Even though it was regrettable, she still had to consider the safety of her teammates in such a dangerous situation. Do you think you can leave safely with firearms? There were over 10,000 corpse puppets here. At most, only 1,000 or so had been taken care of by firearms. Even though these corpse puppets were on fire, most of them could still move around. These kind of corpse puppets were also very dangerous. If a normal person was hugged by them, they would be burned alive even if they weren't bitten to death. At this time, Duan Yu, eldest Qin, and the others led a group of great mystic cultivators to protect the 4 superhumans. They slaughtered a bloody path and rushed down the round platform. Upon seeing this, Arbor pulled Emollien and jumped down together. Chapter 1302. Emollien opened her palm, and a defensive boundary fell on everyone. "Kill our way out," Duan Yu shouted. They had to charge out as fast as they could while carving out a bloody path. Otherwise, it would be difficult to break out of the encirclement if they were surrounded again. Now that the zombie horde was in chaos due to the explosion of firearms, when would they leave if not now? The 100-man team of great mystic cultivators twisted into a rope and blasted towards one direction with all their might. They advanced forward with great difficulty, like a meat grinder pushing forward layer by layer. "Hurry and get down." The mystic cultivators and body cultivators on the round platform roared at the group of people who were hugging the statue like fried dough twists. "Follow them." The group of twisted dough twists started arguing. A portion of them insisted on leaving with the main group, while another portion believed that going down now was no different from courting death. Some people who were crushed in the pile of twisted dough twists wanted to come out, but the people on the outer layer refused to withdraw their hands. As a result, loud arguments, cries, and screams filled this area. Several young lads forcefully shook off the people on their backs. In order to survive, they didn't care about the lives of those idiots. Only idiots would continue hanging here like fried dough twists. If they didn't take advantage of the situation and leave with that powerful team now, they would leave their lives here. "No, don't push me, no," a young girl hanging on the outer layer screamed and fell off the statue. The hands of 2 slightly older elders involuntarily trembled when they saw the young girl being torn to pieces. A young man on the inner layer kicked them out, and the 2 screamed as they fell down. Those nimble young men climbed out of the group of twisted dough twists and jumped off the round platform, running after Arbor's group. However, the majority of people were unwilling to get down from the statue because they were in a wait-and-see mode. "Everyone, please wait. We are a rescue team from Rice City." A brawny body cultivator who had pulled Callie up earlier called out from behind Arbor's group. "Can you please help them and wait a moment? Let me persuade them." Soft-hearted, eldest young Sir Qin turned his head and coldly reprimanded. Since those people still wanted to wait and see in this situation, then let them continue to wait and see. Why bother with them? Xiaomu curled her lips with a mocking gaze. If he had the time, he might as well kill a few more corpse puppets and quickly get out of this mountain of corpses. Smelling the stench, there was a rotten smell everywhere. That team from Rice City must be a bunch of idiots from Notre Dame. Just let them stay here and shine. Help them? He had hands and feet, so why didn't he jump down at the right time and follow the group? If they insisted on hanging themselves on the statue, what could they do about it? His skills were not good, and his brain was disabled. Such a person would not live long, even if he was saved. It wasn't that they were cold-blooded, but they had seen too many idiots and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. "Let's go." At Arbor's command, the 100-man team of great mystic cultivators quickened their pace and rapidly advanced. "Wait!" The rescue team from Rice City panicked. Carly ran after him and screamed, "Let's go! That damned cold-blooded troop! How dare they leave us in the lurch again and again?" An extremely unpleasant roar rolled out from the layers of black fog. When the corpse puppets heard this roar, it was as if they had been given some kind of military order. As if injected with chicken blood, they roared angrily at the sky and surrounded the group without a care. Chapter 1303. Arbor turned around and smacked a pouncing zombie on the head. Her gaze suddenly swept toward the sky. "Be careful." Whoosh. Suddenly, an ugly corpse puppet with a burly body and a face that had completely rotted away appeared in the air. Its true appearance could not be seen. Most importantly, it was floating in the air like a level 7 mystic cultivator and above, and could fly for a short period of time. Everyone's expression shifted as they stared at this zombie. With a stern cry, it swooped down from the sky and grabbed a short mystic cultivator from Rice City's operation team, with its 2 claws that were like iron pincers. Grabbing this mystic cultivator, who was screaming for help, it flew into the sky. Soon, broken limbs fell from the sky. Several normal people shrunk their necks and hugged their heads as they screamed in horror. A faint chill flashed through Lien's eyes. She pulled Arbor's hand and whispered, "Find a way out with the others first." When Arbor heard this, she was immediately displeased. "And what about you?" "Don't worry, I'll immediately come over after dealing with the matters here." Seeing her taut face and silence, Lien helplessly chuckled. "Don't worry, you know that no one here can stop me if I want to escape." That was true. Arbor glanced at her. "Hurry and go." Lien squeezed her hand. "Go find a water source with them first. I'll immediately rush over after dealing with the matters here." There were so many zombies, so they couldn't possibly let them out to harm people. Otherwise, the first to suffer would definitely be Rice City. Arbor nodded reluctantly. She turned around and saw Duanyu smiling at her. "Hurry and go. I'll stay behind to watch this punk and see what he's up to." Xiaomu nodded her small head and turned around to lead the large group of people toward the exit of the small plaza. Seeing this, Rice City's rescue team hastily followed. Yin and Duanyu didn't stop them and merely turned to the side to let them pass. When that female mystic cultivator, Callie, passed by them, she glanced at them with a complicated expression before running over with large strides. "Duanyu. Excellent." Duanyu raised his head in a smile as he repeatedly flicked out several core, ravaging thunders. Yin immediately jumped up, 2 lotus seal whirlpools appearing in his eyes. In an instant, a cluster of the purest black flames between heaven and earth jumped from his fingertips. As soon as this flame appeared, it was as if the great emperor was looking down on the world. The flames that were originally burning on the field dimmed at the same time. The ball of black fire turned into several black lotuses and flew out from his fingers, landing in the middle of the field. The green and red flames that were originally everywhere suddenly merged with the black flames, and then a powerful energy was born. With a tongue sound, all the flames raged. Within the red and green flames, there was a trace of black. Within a few minutes, the corpse puppet that was tainted by the flames was burned to ashes. Not even a trace of ash was left. Duanyu's eyes abruptly bulged, and he quickly reached out to support Yin, who was swaying slightly. "How are you?" Yin shook her head. Duanyu exclaimed in amazement. "You punk, you're incredible. You actually carried a sacred fire, and no one knew." "Stop blabbering. Throw out 2 more. Okay. Duanyu took out the Jade Heavenly Thunder and fired out 2 more rounds. Afterwards, he grabbed Yin and pulled him along as they dashed out of the plaza. The 2 of them guarded the exit of the plaza like door gods. As long as they saw a foolish corpse puppet escaping, they would work together to kill it. Chapter 1304. The sacred fire engulfed everything in heaven and earth. Its might was truly too great. Right now, the entire plaza was completely enveloped by the sacred fire. Not to mention the walls and eaves being melted by the sacred fire. It was impossible for the zombies to escape even if they howled. Roar, roar, roar. The flying zombie flew out from the exit in a rage. Its pair of sinister eyes stared straight at Yin from its rotting eye sockets. "It's my turn to shine." Duan Yu pushed him aside and rolled up his sleeves to hook his finger at the zombie. Come, you ugly fellow. Your grandpa Duan Yu will make sure you don't leave today. Roar. The flying zombie roared angrily and abruptly swooped down from the sky, wanting to grab Duan Yu again like how it grabbed that short mystic cultivator. What a joke. Can you catch me? Duan Yu blinked his bright eyes and leisurely raised his hands, crossing them in front of his eyes to block. Bang! Black spirit armor gauntlets formed on his hands and were impervious to weapons, instantly repelling that zombie's claws. Let me show you my full-body spirit armor. Duan Yu giggled mischievously. In the blink of an eye, black spirit armor covered his entire body, and he jumped into the air with a whoosh, arriving in front of that zombie. Without any explanation, he smashed a fist at that zombie's head. Boom! His fists were covered in spirit armor and entwined with threads of spirit chi. With a single punch, he immediately knocked the flying corpse puppet backwards and smashed it into the earth wall behind it with a bang. Roar! Roar, roar! That zombie already had intelligence, and sensed that the two men in front of it were not to be trifled with. So, it actually turned its head to flee. In the blink of an eye, Emolyen's sacred fire transformed into a black whip that swept over and instantly coiled around the zombie's waist. After a vicious tug, bang! The sacred fire coiled around the zombie, and it crashed heavily to the ground. Clang! After a light sound, a token rolled down from its waist. Duan Yu glanced down, and his expression turned odd. Emolyen, guess who he is? Jiaozhong City's city lord. Emolyen leaned against the small dirt wall at the exit and looked at the zombie with a cold gaze. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and kill it. Fine, fine, you heartless guy. Duan Yu swiped his hand, and the raven-bone sword appeared in his hand. He abruptly pierced through the head of the struggling zombie on the ground. A mighty wave of mystic energy swept over, and Duan Yu sent that city lord's corpse puppet's head flying with a swing of his sword. He then took out a glowing green crystal core that was slightly larger than a fingernail. It seems to be slightly bigger than the previous undead hags. He muttered to himself and turned to look at him. Suddenly, he grinned at him. Do you think I should kill you now? Then Jojo will be mine. Emolyen threw him a cold look. Cut the crap. Come and help me. Tisk. Duan Yu turned his head and harumphed. Why aren't you afraid at all? You're even freaking acting like a lord. As he spoke, his body reacted faster than his brain. In a flash, he appeared beside him and supported him. At the same time, he stabbed a corpse puppet with his sword and kicked it back into the square, causing it to spontaneously combust. Hey, don't tell me you were discovered by heavenly law. Duan Yu chuckled gloatingly. Hurry up and go to the upper bound. I will take good care of Jojo. Scram. Emolyen glared at him. Chapter 1305. Huh. Duan Yu cast him a sidelong glance and firmly grasped his wrist. When he saw Duan Yu's body tilting, he teasingly called out, hey, don't fall. However, he still propped up his slender body and rolled his eyes. I'm telling you, I'm not interested in men. Thanks, but I'm also not the slightest bit interested in you. Emolyen rolled her eyes at him. Haha, Duan Yu giggled. Fine, fine, then I'll tell you. You better not provoke me right now. My mind is in a fierce struggle right now. It's very likely that I'll kill you while the moon is dark and the wind is strong. In any case, you're being suppressed by heavenly law right now, so you'll die sooner or later. Emolyen irritably glanced at him. So long-winded. What are you saying? Duan Yu pursed his lips. Treat me better, punk. You won't do it at all, because you won't do anything to make her sad. Duan Yu's handsome face stiffened, and he cast him a sidelong glance. However, his gaze just so happened to meet Emolyen's. Seeing his clear and penetrating gaze, she harumphed in displeasure. Emolyen impatiently placed her hand on his shoulder, placing all her weight on him. Hurry and take me away. Thump. A loud knock landed on Emolyen's head, and the latter looked at Duan Yu, that punk, in bewilderment. Duan Yu was inwardly pleased, but his face remained taut as he rudely warned, Punk, watch yourself. I might freaking not be able to kill you, but I can beat you up. How about it? Are you scared now? Duan Yu grinned as he dragged Emolien's body, half propping, half dragging her out. I'm not scared of you, you idiot. The two of them hadn't walked far, while supporting each other when a series of explosions sounded in the small plaza. Duan Yu's footsteps paused as he supported Emolien, and he turned his head to look. He saw that the plaza had been sealed off by a raging inferno and thick smoke. Not to mention a zombie, even a ghost would not be able to escape. My month's section break. Arbor tilted his head and jumped up to look at the small square in the distance. He pursed his lips and didn't say anything. Don't worry, little junior sister. With those two fellows together, you can't find anyone in the entire Seacone planet who can make things difficult for them. It'll be fine. Situ, he comforted her with a smile. Then why aren't you here yet? The little fellow turned his head and glanced at senior brother Situ. With their cautious nature, they will definitely wait at the exit for a while to see if any corpse puppets escape. Situ, he said with a smile. Don't worry, junior sister. It will be fine. Senior brother Situ, senior brother Situ. As he spoke, a few disciples quickly ran over from afar. We found a water source. Outside the city lord's mansion, it's at the back of the mountain. Contaminated? Situyi's expression changed as he quickly walked towards them. Yeah, it's completely black. The water looks especially disgusting. Senior brother Situ, senior sister Liang, little junior sister. Another disciple quickly ran over. We discovered man-made ponds. There are 3 in the entire city. They've all been contaminated. Liang Qingqing's expression darkened at once. Yes, senior sister. That disciple nodded solemnly. Should I bring you over to take a look now? Let's go to the nearest one. Arbor gave the final word. Has everyone returned? Everyone's back. Keep up. Everyone clamored as they followed the 2 disciples leading the way, heading towards the man-made pond. Chapter 1306. Emolien had ordered for every fortification to prepare their own pools for the sake of dealing with unexpected situations. She had sent people to guard the water source, but unfortunately, it didn't seem to be effective and was still destroyed. The ponds weren't too big, but they had enough water for daily use. There are a total of 3 ponds like this in the city. Arbor turned to ask the disciple who discovered the ponds. Yes. That disciple nodded repeatedly and walked to the side while pinching his nose. It stinks like hell. Look at the water inside. It's like mud and filth. Arbor nodded. If they're poisoning the water source at the same time, they'll have to split into several groups to do it. That's right. The 4 water sources are quite far apart from each other, especially the water source behind the city lord's estate. It's a living water source. It's not easy to pollute the entire water source. Where does the water source lead to? Arbor's expression changed. Is it the nearby Rice City? When the Rice City rescue team heard this, their expressions changed. They all started talking at once. What? The stinky water is heading to our Rice City? What should we do? The people of Rice City are still in the dark. Then what are you guys still standing there for? Hurry back to Rice City and report the situation. Arbor glanced at them coldly. His first impression of these brainless people from Rice City was very bad. Rescuing people had to be done within their means. The first thing to consider was the lives of their teammates. Otherwise, if they sacrificed themselves in the rescue, they wouldn't be able to save anyone and another group of people would die. What was the point of that? Also, did they need to accommodate Dong Shi, who was born to be arrogant and unwilling to cooperate, even when they came to rescue you? If they didn't want to die, they could just scram. They came to rescue them because of morality. As a person, they had to know their place. The female mystic cultivator named Callie shouted with a dark face. There are still many zombies nearby. Our team only has a dozen people left. We don't have enough strength to break through. That's something your team leader has to consider. Arbor looked at her indifferently. Let's check out the other water sources. Everyone in Rice City's rescue team had ugly expressions on their faces. After Arbor and the others moved, they also moved forward. Because he really didn't know what he could do now. If they didn't run with the other teams, with the little fighting power of their defeated team, if they would be surrounded by zombies again, they wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between the zombies' teeth. When everyone moved to the next dried-up and smelly pool, a mystic cultivator in the back suddenly shouted, "You're not that one. Don't run." Arbor heard the sound and turned around, only to see a ghostly shadow brush past the ruins of the earth wall and suddenly jump into a dilapidated house. "He's just pretending to be mysterious." Arbor flashed past, and Situ E, Liang Qingqing, and the others followed suit. "Wait." Carly stretched out her hand to stop her teammates. She raised her eyelids slightly and said, "It might be dangerous. Let's not go over there. Just wait here." Arbor's group jumped into the dilapidated house and chased after him. There was a big hole in the backyard of the house. Like a big mouse, the man slipped out of the hole. Arbor waved his hand, and half of the earth wall crumbled to the ground with a crack. Narrowing his eyes, Arbor said softly, "Your invisibility talisman won't work." With that, he flung his hand, and several silver needles flew over. This time, there was nothing to hide behind, and a grunt came from the corner of the wall. Chapter 13:07. "Ah, a female mystic cultivator," exclaimed in surprise. "Aren't you that Jiaozhong Fortifications' second manager, Lu Yuan? Why are you here, brat?" Brother Axe strode forward and was just about to grab Lu Yuan's hair when he heard Arbor shout, "Be careful." He retracted his hand, and a short red-eyed zombie darted out from the side and viciously bit the heavy armor on his arm. "It's that child, the City Lord's estate's young sir. Heavens, he's really zombified." Everyone hastily came to his rescue and flung the little zombie into a corner with several bursts of mystic energy. "Come back," Chow Mu reprimanded with widened eyes. Brother Axe looked down at his heavy armor and exhaled before turning back to smile foolishly at Arbor. "It's fine, Suddenly, a barbed tongue shot out from the little zombie's mouth and went straight for Brother Axe's mouth. Brother Axe's entire body was covered in heavy armor, only his mouth and eyes exposed. In his panic, he sent out a burst of mystic energy and missed the wriggling tongue. He could only watch as the barbed tongue wriggled toward his mouth. Brother Axe's scalp tingled, and he raised his broad axe with a roar. The little zombie was truly too fast. This happened in the blink of an eye. Arbor abruptly threw an icicle at the long, wriggling tongue, instantly severing a small portion of it at the waist. Sitting in a corner, Lu Yuan's eyes flashed gloomily when he saw this. He grabbed a thick rope and was about to climb into the hole in the wall. Unexpectedly, the tongue that had fallen to the ground suddenly leaped up and flew into Lu Yuan's slightly open mouth as if it had grown eyes. Lu Yuan didn't expect this at all. The barbed tongue was already stuck in his throat, causing his eyes to bulge out of their sockets in shock and terror. He was still holding a thick rope in his hand, and the other end of the rope was tightly bound to the little zombie. The frightened Axe brother hurriedly returned to his team and nodded gratefully at Arbor. "Thank you." The female mystic cultivator at the side pursed her lips and said in astonishment, "Look, he's still holding on to that little zombie. Could it be that he thinks he can control this corpse puppet? He probably came back to look for supplies." Arbor coldly glanced at Lu Yuan, who was slumped in the corner. "I just didn't expect to go for wool and come home shorn." "That's right." Eldest young Sir Qin nodded. "It must be that the City Lord's estate's youngest young sir knows where the supplies are. This Lu Yuan saw that we were here to exterminate the zombies, so he had the idea of bringing the City Lord's son back to secretly search for supplies. I didn't expect to lose my life here." Situ, he shook his head. With a wave of his sword, he chopped off Lu Yuan's head. On the other side, 3 great mystic cultivators fixed the little zombie in place with mystic energy. Looking at its scarlet eyes filled with hatred, they shook their heads and said, "Do we need to leave it behind to find supplies?" Arbor pursed her lips and shook her head. Eldest young Sir Qin immediately swiped his fan with his hand, and a powerful mystic energy directly penetrated the little zombie's head with it. "Look around. There's probably an underground granary here," Arbor said softly, suddenly losing interest in talking. "Jojo, what's there to be unhappy about? Even if we don't kill these monsters, we can't just wait to be killed by them." Eldest Qin winked at her. Suddenly, an eagle cry sounded. Hashtag continuing at night. Chapter 1308. Arbor was crouching on a mound of earth with his small chin in his hands. Besides eldest Chin's long-winded chatter, many team members were also chattering. No wonder this Lu Yuan acted so strangely earlier. Even if the city lord's estate's youngest young master would turn into a zombie, he still insisted on keeping him by his side. Truly, one's own selfish desires harmed one's own life. The one who suddenly appeared in the tunnel just now was this Lu Yuan, right? He's the most familiar with the city lord's estate's geography. I wonder how His Highness the Crown Prince is doing. Do you guys think that the underground storehouse is still at the end of the tunnel? When he heard the hawk's cry, Arbor reluctantly raised his small head. An enormous black shadow swooped down from the sky. Qin Xian suddenly flew up and grabbed Arbor to dodge to the side. Who is it? Situ Yi, Liang Qingqing, and the others all rushed forward as if they were facing a great enemy. They saw a huge six-winged hawk swooping down in the air. After missing its attack, a cold glint appeared in the hawk's eyes, and with a cry, it once again swooped down in Arbor's direction. An enormous force sent several great mystic cultivators nearby flying. Qin Xian's cold eyes narrowed. Just as he was about to attack, he was pulled back by Arbor. I'll take care of it myself. What the hell? Did he think he was the ruler of the sky just because he was sitting on a hawk? Get down. Arbor pulled out a green vine whip and swung it straight up. After a whip mark, one of the four people sitting on the six-winged goshawk, a young man among them, let out a soft cry of surprise. Catch her! Guan Ying shouted harshly. With a flick of her finger, she flung out an iron chain and knocked away Arbor's green vine whip. The six-winged goshawk suddenly soared high into the sky and flung away the several great mystic cultivators who were pouncing over with its open wings. It swooped down from the sky at an extremely fast speed, and its claws were about to grab Arbor's shoulder. Qingwan rushed over from the distance and swatted away the hawk's claws. Its sharp claws were like blades, directly tearing a hole in the hawk's claw. The eagle let out a shrill cry. Arbor looked coldly at the people on the eagle's back. She saw her old acquaintances at a glance. Big brother next door, Fan Xiuha, you're here to die, Arbor said coldly. The huge commotion made Carly and the others rush over like a swarm of bees. When they saw the green lawn and the six-winged goshawk whose huge wings covered the sky, everyone's eyes were filled with astonishment. Pah! With a whipping sound, the green vine whip condensed from spiritual energy scraped a deep white mark on the ground. Since you're here, then stay here for me. Arbor leaped up onto the back of the blue lawn and glared coldly at the four people on the eagle's back. Hee, little girl, you sure talk big. Guan Ying stood on the eagle's back with her arms crossed, her ample bosom almost overflowing. Old girl, you sure talk big, Arbor said with a straight face, but the words that came out of her mouth made Guan Ying's face contort in anger. What? What the hell is an old girl? The tense atmosphere almost went astray in an instant. Situ, Yi, and the others painfully held back their laughter, their expressions somewhat contorted. Enough nonsense, Guan Ying shouted angrily. Bring it on. I'd like to see how capable a damn girl like you is. Chapter 1309. You're the one who's been talking nonsense. Arbor had the attitude of wanting to piss people off. She said this and tapped the back of Blue Lawn with the tip of her foot. He flew into the air and threw out 18 sparkling and translucent hexagonal snowflakes. When the snowflakes flew in front of the six-winged goshawk, they instantly exploded. A huge amount of spiritual energy overflowed in an instant and almost flipped the four people on the goshawk's back off. The old man who had been resting with his eyes closed was Consecrated Zhao. He abruptly opened his sharp old eyes, which were filled with disbelief as he coldly glared at Xiaomu. Xueling, the little girl in front of him, was a weakling from the lower star region. Not only could she control the water spirit, but she could also control it so skillfully. She could condense water into ice and turn ice into snow. This ability to control the water spirit was probably only possessed by great spiritual masters. They might not even have the talent to be able to change between the various states of spirit water at any time. This girl couldn't be someone from an ordinary small family in the lower star region. Who are you? What answered the old man was Arbor's vine whip. Ask on your way to the underworld. Xiaomu narrowed her eyes, and she swiftly swiped open the void, pulling out a ferrule. She instantly imbued the ferrule with spiritual energy, and it carried a lush green light as it swatted at the six-winged goshawk's head. The crowd below shuddered one after another. Savage. Too savage. This was their little crown princess. The little crown princess who cared for her teammates so much along the way. Once they became her enemy, she wouldn't even bother to talk nonsense with them. She would just attack. With spirit. The old man's eyelids twitched wildly. He hurriedly threw out a spiritual energy shield and covered the people on the goshawk's back. Boom! Under the huge force, the six-winged goshawk couldn't stabilize its body and fell straight to the ground. Seeing this, Blue Luan, who cooperated well, immediately rushed over and spat out a mouthful of ice that had been stored up for a long time. It shot straight toward the six-winged goshawk's head. Roar! The six-winged goshawk dodged a few icicles, but couldn't dodge all of them. The Blue Luan's combat power was not something that a small goshawk like it could resist, although the goshawk's combat power was indeed not bad. However, as the saying goes, comparisons are odious. The six-winged goshawk was, after all, just a high-level mystical beast. It had no chance of winning against a spirit beast, let alone a divine bird like Qing Luan. The six-winged goshawk was pierced through its head and wings by two icicles and fell straight to the ground. Arbor stood on the back of the Blue Luan and circled around them. His eyes were cold as he looked at them. Cough, cough, cough. Guan Ying choked on a mouthful of dust, her eyes filled with disbelief. The little girl that he thought he could easily deal with a flick of his finger was actually controlling the water spirit and the wood spirit. Are their eyes playing tricks on them? Who the hell are you? Guan Ying's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. She even began to think of retreating. They had been rash this time, coming here to humiliate themselves without understanding the situation clearly. But even if they retreated now, they had to see if the other party was willing to let them go. Pundit Zhao's old eyes narrowed sharply. Were you the one who killed Pundit Li and Gong Yang in the Mystic Beast Forest? The life lantern miniatures that Pundit Li and Gong Yang sent back were extremely blurry. Both of them were in the thick fog of gunfire explosions. Chapter 1310. At that time, he could only see a blurry white beast. In Pundit Zhao's view, the slender figure next to the beast was increasingly similar to the crown princess in front of him. So, it's a few fish that slipped through the net from Ani Prefecture. Arbor raised several streams of water and shuttled them back and forth between his fingers. Kill them. Arbor's figure moved, and he was the first to pounce at Pundit Zhao. Qing Luan let out a shrill cry and pounced at the young man from Ani Prefecture. As for the little fat squirrel that suddenly appeared, it rushed towards Guan Ying with a whoosh. Although Guan Ying was a bit scared, she felt abnormally angry when she saw a little fat squirrel daring to bare its fangs and brandish its claws in front of her. Before she could curse, little bastard, Pundit Zhao's shout suddenly sounded in her ears. Ying, be careful! Guan Ying's scalp exploded as she instantly sensed a dangerous aura assaulting her. She promptly made a decision and rolled on the ground, seizing a sliver of time to dodge a large, furry tail. Boom! All the hairs on Guan Ying's body stood on end. When she opened her eyes and focused, she saw a squirrel the size of a small mound standing in front of her and blinking cutely at her. But in the next second, its movements weren't the least bit cute. Its straightened tail was like a large club as it ruthlessly smashed at her again. Bang! Bang bang! Guan Ying could only roll on the ground to dodge the attacks. She had no choice but to dodge the attacks. She squatted up with great difficulty and threw out several mystic energy bursts, but they were all blocked by the fat mound squirrel's claws in the first instance. Its claws looked white and soft, yet they could actually block a level 1 spiritual cultivator's attack. Sweat gradually appeared on Guan Ying's forehead, and her pupils abruptly contracted as she felt a strong sense of fear. Today she had kicked an iron plate. On the other side, Pundit Zhao also gradually felt a sense of pressure in the battle. Arbor used an aura-concealing talisman, so in Pundit Zhao's view, he was a small level 9 mystic cultivator. But the combat strength of this girl in front of him made him break out in cold sweat. Not only did she summon 2 mystic beasts, her own strength was far from what a level 9 mystic cultivator could compare to. Arbor waved her hand, and 5 streams of water flowed along her fingertips. With her current level of control over water, she could only control such a thin stream of water. It was fine to deal with ordinary people, but it seemed to be a little weak against this old ghost. She covered her hands with the Vajra amulet and pounded her fists on the old man's chest. Boom! Boom! 2 strikes landed on the other party's defensive barrier. Consecrated Zhao's complexion actually turned slightly pale. Great ape! Xiaomu blinked her eyes, following which she shouted. Consecrated Zhao's body suddenly tensed up. He felt a terrifying aura coming from behind him. When he turned around to look, the back of his head was heavily smacked by a furry claw. He was immediately stunned. He staggered and fell forward heavily. He stared at the girl in front of him. Her eyes flashed with a cold, demonic light. She raised a black ferrule with both hands and struck it fiercely at his head. Attacked from the front and back, Consecrated Zhao was heavily injured, and his aura instantly withered. You still dare to be absent-minded while fighting me. Arbor curled her lips and sneered. Everyone from Ani Prefecture deserves to die. Arbor waved her hand and sent 5 icicles into the other party's body. Chapter 13:11. Consecrated Zhao. Guan Ying's eyes were bloodshot as she stared blankly at the little crown princess, killing Consecrated Zhao on the spot. But there was nothing she could do. She couldn't even protect herself, and was powerless to stop it. Roar, roar, roar. The large ape patted its chest, looking like it was asking for praise. Xiao Mu cast a sidelong glance at his hairy and silly grinning face and harumphed. You're still under observation, so be careful. The large ape's head immediately drooped down, revealing a pitiful look. At this time, Guan Ying and the other young man were completely panicking when they saw Consecrated Zhao's miserable state. Guan Ying exchanged a look with the young man, then suddenly took out a talisman from her arms. Arbor's sharp eyes noticed that it was a teleportation talisman. He immediately pounced over and reached out to grab it. Guan Ying and the young man had already activated the talisman and teleported away. Fan Xiuhe was extremely cunning. When Arbor was fighting with Consecrated Zhao, he had already sneaked away when no one was paying attention. Arbor's eyes flashed, and he took out a teleportation talisman from his fingertips. As eldest Qin shouted, "Jojo, don't chase," Arbor's figure disappeared with a whoosh. Qing Wan and the fat squirrel looked at each other, then suddenly jumped up, shouted "Master," and chased forward. The large ape scratched its head. Its arms thumped against the ground, and it hurriedly chased after Qing Wan on all fours. After Arbor teleported twice, he realized that Guan Ying and the young man were not in front of him at all. He was instantly unhappy. This teleportation talisman was a little tricky. When he teleported out, he couldn't grasp the distance and direction. Everything depended on his face. She was standing beside a pool of sewage. She had inspected this place with her teammates before. At that time, she didn't do anything when she looked at the sewage in the pool. Now that she was standing here alone, she couldn't help but think. She could clearly smell the rotten stench in the pool. She covered her nose, and her eyebrows moved slightly. A small stream of water flowed out from between her fingers and suddenly slid into the pool. After the water was sprinkled in, a small layer of ripples appeared on the surface of the pool, and a mass of green and clean water wrapped around the filth in the pool. This circle of water wrapped around the stinky water and slowly became sparkling and translucent. In the blink of an eye, the improved water was swallowed up by a large area of dirty water. Arbor squatted beside the pool and said to himself, "It seems that it's not impossible to improve. If Dian was here, she could probably restore this place to its original state with a wave of her hand. With just a few small streams of water in her hands, she definitely had no chance. Thinking of this, she felt a little excited. What did this mean? In this life, she and all the people around her would no longer suffer the pain of having no water to drink from the polluted water source. She had the holy water in her hands, so this kind of situation did not exist. Arbor took a deep breath. Just as he was about to stand up, he suddenly felt a chill on his back. It was accompanied by a strong, murderous aura. Alarm bells suddenly rang in his mind. A heavy and strong mental power attack rushed toward her conscious. The speed was very fast. The 12 jade slips, transformed from the golden talisman jade tome, immediately rotated and wrapped around each other, forming a protective shield that blocked this attack without hesitation. Chapter 13:12. But Arbor still felt a slight prickle in his head. A person's figure swayed by the pool, subconsciously reaching out to support his forehead. When he opened his eyes and looked not far away, his eyes had already condensed into ice, containing a cold, sharp, killing intent. The person who came couldn't help but sound puzzled when his attack didn't damage the opponent's spiritual consciousness. The little girl is a bit strange. The person who spoke had an old face comparable to a monkey's. His cheeks were puffed up high, revealing a trace of excitement when he saw his prey. Arbor slightly wrinkled his brows, unhurriedly waving a mystic guiding talisman formation beside him. Damn it, old monkey! Why aren't you making a move? This little girl is indeed a great talisman master. Be careful. She's just a talisman master. Isn't it easy for me to capture her? The shrewd monkey man called Old Monkey stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, a lustful look on his face. He stared at Arbor and said, "The little girl is born with delicate skin and tender flesh. She's actually a rare beauty in this world." Old Monkey suddenly dodged to the side, dodging a string of poison darts that flew out from Arbor's hand. A stinky mouth can't spit out ivory. Arbor coldly snorted. You just used a spiritual attack on me. Hee. The little girl understands spiritual attacks. It's indeed a bit strange. Although Old Monkey's eyes carried a lustful smile, his expression was extremely vigilant, guarding against Arbor's attack. Now it's my turn to make a move. Arbor sneered and said, "It's impolite not to reciprocate." She stimulated her spiritual consciousness, instantly penetrating the opponent's consciousness, catching him off guard and giving him a fierce blow. Old Monkey, who was already on guard, didn't expect this girl to also use a spiritual attack. In an instant, he was hit head-on. He roared on the spot, his body heavily falling backwards. Old Monkey, that companion hiding in the dark, couldn't hold it in any longer and jumped out with a furious roar. He struck out a heavy gust of wind directly at Xiaomu. Boom! That heavy, profound energy heavily pounced on the large cauldron that Arbor had suddenly withdrawn and placed in front of him. The 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron helped her block this fierce attack. Although Arbor was hiding behind the cauldron, he felt a little uncomfortable. Because of this collision, his internal organs seemed to have been forcefully shifted a few inches, and his chest felt stuffy and uncomfortable. Although her cultivation as a mystic cultivator had increased, her body still needed to be tempered. If her body wasn't strong enough, she would suffer in battle like now. The earth spirit rolled out. Under Old Monkey's slightly shocked gaze, he quickly retreated. Layers of soil piled up under their feet, forming an earth spirit barrier. Old Monkey and his companions were slightly shocked, and the barrier collapsed and fell down on them. The two of them roared again and again, jumping back and forth in the gray layer of the falling soil. They saw Arbor turn around and run. Old Monkey shouted, "Chase after them." He took the lead and rushed out. "You aren't from Ani Prefecture." Arbor instantly released a water spirit barrier behind her. In an instant, the force from Old Monkey and the other person heavily landed on her back, pushing her forward several meters. Xiaomu twisted her body in midair and agilely leaped a large step forward. She suddenly took out the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron again and blocked the 2 attacks coming from the front. Chapter 13:13. Arbor fled because she sensed more than 10 auras of varying strength attacking her. This meant that Old Monkey's companions were chasing after her. She would not foolishly stay in the same spot and wait for them to gang up on her. What kind of joke was this that, although she did not know who these people were, Arbor had some speculations in her heart. Old Monkey's companions chased after her quickly and leaped up. A palm wind mixed with thick mystic energy attacked Arbor's back again. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 teleportation talismans were used, and Arbor's figure instantly moved to 1,000 meters away. Damned brat! She has talismans on her. Quickly capture her! More than 10 people rushed out from the dark and surrounded Arbor, intending to force her into the encirclement. Arbor had been attacked by Old Monkey's mental energy at the beginning and felt a slight pain in her head. After that, the attacks from those people were still manageable for her. It was just that Old Monkey had more companions now, which was not a good thing for her. If she was really captured by them in the encirclement, she would definitely be beaten up by them. She was a little speechless. If she had known earlier, she would not have teleported. Or if she had brought Qing Luan and the others with her. At least she had a helper now. Impulse was the devil. The teleportation talisman was not reliable. If the teleportation talisman could speak, it would definitely complain that she was not reliable. It was not like she did not know its settings. Now that she had teleported so many times, she herself did not know where she had teleported to. What was hateful was that Old Monkey. After being attacked by her mental energy, he still dared to use his spiritual consciousness to lock onto her. No matter where she teleported to, he was like a damned fly, immediately buzzing towards her. She wanted to see how long this Old Monkey's spiritual consciousness could lock onto her. Anyway, she had a lot of talismans. I'll teleport, I'll teleport. I'll teleport, teleport, teleport. If one looked down from the sky now, they would find that this little fellow was very funny. She was holding a bunch of talismans and teleporting around the city lord's residence. That figure was like a ray of light, appearing in the east with a whoosh and then in the north with a whoosh. In the end, she accidentally teleported in front of the dumbfounded Old Monkey. When Old Monkey discovered that the little girl was right in front of its eyes with its spiritual sense, it couldn't react in time and struck out with its palm. The little girl suddenly teleported away again. Xiao Xiao. Eldest Qin and the others were also searching for Xiao Mu's whereabouts. He happened to see her little body flash and disappear. She was really a troublesome girl. Damn it. Old Monkey and the others were enraged. More than a dozen people were chasing a little girl who was a level 9 mystic cultivator, yet they freaking spent so much effort. It was simply infuriating. Old Monkey and the others were enraged, and they released their Shin beasts one after another. Old Monkey took a step forward and sat on the big black dog. He hissed forward. His spiritual sense was running out. If he couldn't find that damned little girl before the deadline, he wouldn't be able to lock her down. Not being able to lock her down meant that it would be even harder to find her. This damn girl was like a slippery loach, going east and going west. It was simply infuriating. I'm here, Xiao Mu roared, and she stuck another teleportation talisman on herself, leaving Eldest Qin and the others, who were chasing after her, in the dust. Sitiyi's mouth twitched, and he couldn't resist rolling his eyes. I think that girl is having a lot of fun. What's going on? Liang Qingqing was exasperated. Are we still going to continue chasing? Chapter 13:14. After her, Situ, he said with a nod. There was a group of people with unknown intentions chasing after Jojo, so they naturally couldn't leave her alone. Student Arbor teleported in a big circle and sighed, feeling somewhat disappointed and frustrated. As expected, this teleportation talisman teleported randomly. She had tried teleporting so many times, but the location was never the same as before. Honestly speaking, she felt a little dizzy from the teleportation. Lousy talismans. Arbor put away a handful of talismans and stayed where she was. She calmly looked at Old Monkey's 2 companions as they ran toward her with malevolent expressions. These 2 people were both riding a gale wolf. She didn't know if they were uniformly equipped by the higher-ups. This kind of gale wolf was the most common mystic beast. Its specialty was that it ran fast and generally didn't have high attack power. Arbor winked at the two people mockingly. With a slight movement of her fingers, an imperial thunder barrier enveloped the two people. Old Monkey, who was chasing over on a large black hound, shouted in alarm when he saw this from afar. "Get out of the way!" But it was already too late. The imperial thunder barrier enveloped the two people's figures and immediately activated a series of crackling thunder and lightning. The well-shaped lightning cut the two people into small pieces in a matter of minutes. Arbor expressionlessly stood outside the imperial thunder barrier and shook her head. "It's quite disgusting. You're the one who fucking made it disgusting." Old Monkey's eyes were brimming with intertwining fury, and he roared, "Go!" The remaining dozen or so people of unknown origins all mounted gale wolves and rushed toward Arbor in extremely fast speed. A trace of viciousness faintly appeared in Arbor's eyes. When those people were only a meter away from her, she suddenly leaped up and flashed slightly in midair. Two profound armaments appeared in her left and right hands. "Damn, girl, you have a lot of good stuff in your hands." Old Monkey sneered and firmly locked onto her with his spiritual perception. "But it's a reckless waste of natural resources in your hands. You're just a minor level 9 mystic cultivator, so you have no use for them at all." Boom! Boom! What? Old Monkey and the others quickly lay down on the ground, but there were still two people who were close to Arbor. They were directly sent flying by the power of the profound artifact's self-explosion. They landed on the ground and spat out two mouthfuls of blood. She actually got Old Monkey and the others were so angry that they were trembling. This wretched lass who was recklessly wasting God's gift had actually casually caused the profound armament to self-explode. It was obvious how precious each of these profound armaments were. How many people spent their entire lives chasing after a profound armament, but they could not get it? And she actually used it as a joke. Was this something a human could do? He was even richer than the nouveau riche. While Old Monkey and the others were dumbfounded, Arbor waved his hand, and the translucent shadow of the defensive thunder barrier enveloped the other two. This time, Arbor didn't immediately open the defensive thunder barrier to attack. Instead, he sent down a ferocious spiritual sense, which directly rushed into the two's consciousness and began to seize their inner worlds. Two cries of different pitches came from inside the defensive thunder barrier. Old Monkey came back to his senses in shock and hastily said furiously, "Attack! Attack! Focus fire! Kill this wretched lass for me." This wretched lass was too arrogant. Her entire body was filled with treasures. It simply couldn't make people angrier. At this time, a dense oppressive aura exploded from Arbor's body. All the beasts felt this oppressive aura, and those gale wolves trembled as they laid down on the ground. Even a large black dog under Old Monkey's, but also curled up like a kitten after struggling twice. Chapter 13:15. Previously, it was precisely because of the interweaving of the two sacred beast auras. That was why Pundit Zhao and the other two didn't dare to release their mystic beasts when fighting Arbor, because they felt that it was useless to release them and that they would only be suppressed in vain. At that time, if their mystic beasts were the first to be injured, the unlucky ones would be their masters who would suffer backlash. This situation was extremely bad, and now, Old Monkey and the others felt a sense of danger pouncing on them. Their mystic beasts were suppressed by the other party's sacred beast aura to the point that they couldn't move. This caused Old Monkey to be both terrified and angry out of humiliation. It was also their fault for not making things clear before. They always thought that dealing with a little girl from the lower realm with no background would be a very easy matter. Damn it, they didn't expect that this damn girl would have so many treasures on her. No wonder the higher-ups valued her so much and gave a death order to deal with her as soon as possible. If she was allowed to develop in this state, no one could predict how far she would grow in the end. Old Monkey closed his eyes and coldly shouted, "Everyone move aside. His eyes narrowed slightly, and an invisible force condensed in his conscious like a whirling storm. He didn't believe that he couldn't deal with the damn girl in front of him with his level 2 spiritual sense. That's right, he was a great spiritual master suppressed to level 15 mystic realm, and Old Monkey's spiritual sense had just entered the level 2 realm 2 days ago. Among all the people who came with him, his spiritual sense was extremely high, which was extremely rare. The damned girl in front of him was merely a level 9 mystic cultivator. She relied on the numerous treasures on her to be so impudent in front of them for so long. Now, he wanted to destroy her conscience with one strike and turn her into a fool for the rest of her life. This way, he would complete the mission assigned by the higher-ups, completely destroy Arbor. Old Monkey was slightly excited at the thought of the bountiful reward. "Be careful, Old Monkey," his partner reminded. He kept feeling that the girl in front of him was rather strange. They had so many spiritual realm experts chasing a level 9 mystic realm girl, but they actually spent so much fucking effort and couldn't do anything to her after so long. It could be seen that this person was extremely strange. Old Monkey kicked the big black dog under it. Unfortunately, that black dog had already been firmly suppressed by the phoenix egg's might and didn't dare to move recklessly. It lowered its head and hugged itself. Old Monkey got angry when he saw this. He kicked the big black dog's stomach and snorted, "Useless thing." Subsequently, he simply gave up on that black dog and leaped towards Xiao Mu himself. He just didn't believe that this damned girl would be able to block the full force of his spiritual sense attack. Old Monkey concluded that his spiritual sense attack was ineffective against Arbor because it was just a probing attack and didn't go all out. Just like now, as long as he used all his strength, he would definitely be able to take down that damn girl. Viciousness shot out of Old Monkey's eyes, and he launched a spiritual conscious attack at Xiao Mu's conscious without warning. This time, Xiao Mu had made preparations beforehand. At the same time that she activated her defensive barrier, she had also condensed a spiritual conscious in her conscious. They were just waiting for that guy to walk right into their trap. The moment Old Monkey's spiritual sense rushed in, it was intercepted by the golden talisman Jade Tome without any surprise. Arbor took advantage of the situation and directly launched a spiritual sense attack. Chapter 13:16. This wave of counterattack came swiftly and ruthlessly, directly charging back into the depths of Old Monkey's conscious. Old Monkey had no time to defend against this spiritual sense attack at all. It was as if a sharp blade had pierced into the depths of his consciousness, tearing a wide crack in it. Old Monkey only had time to let out a blood-curdling scream before his eyes rolled back. He then fell backward and crashed heavily onto the ground. This spiritual sense attack was clearly more ferocious than the previous probing attack. Arbor also slowly grasped the crux of spiritual sense attacks from this. This vulgar man called Old Monkey would probably discover that he had completely turned into an idiot when he woke up. A small shrimp with level 2 spiritual sense dared to attack her, Humph. She had level 3 spiritual sense. Crushing a small level 2 was too easy. Old Monkey suddenly fell to the ground and fainted, frightening the others. They simply didn't dare to believe that Old Monkey actually fell just like that. Their gazes toward Arbor also carried a trace of bewilderment. Truly strange. Old Monkey's mental strength could be considered top-notch among them. An expert with level 2 spiritual sense was actually knocked down by a small level 9 mystic cultivator's mental attack. Who would believe this if they told others? Old Monkey's partner immediately bellowed in his daze. "Everyone, pay attention. This lass isn't some level 9 mystic cultivator at all." This bunch of slow-witted fellows finally realized that something was amiss. A small level 9 mystic cultivator could knock down a proper spiritual cultivator with her spiritual sense? How is this possible? It was very obvious that the other party was relying on some kind of spiritual item or treasure to conceal her strength in front of them. A bunch of trash. I sent so many of you, but you can't even deal with a little lass. A sinister voice, carrying an endless chill, assaulted them. Arbor's pupils contracted slightly, and she abruptly turned her head. Her entire body burst forth with faint water spiritual energy, and a water spiritual barrier instantly enveloped her entire body. Following that sinister voice, water power surged toward her like a monstrous wave. Bang! The little guy slid in his water spirit barrier, and his little hands and feet rolled in the water spirit barrier. Then, he was sent flying by the force of the incoming person that old monkey's companions, who had suffered a setback earlier, saw their boss send that damn girl flying as soon as he made a move. Their morale was immediately boosted. They waved their arms and shouted, "Brother 2 is mighty! Brother 2 is mighty!" Boom! Xiao Mu was struck headfirst by that sky-toppling wave, and she was buried in a shallow pit with the water spiritual barrier over her head. Damn it! This person actually sent her flying. Was there any justice in this world? Although she wasn't injured, she had been sent flying. She had been sent flying. A level 6 spiritual water guy was actually able to control such a huge amount of water mist. As for her, she only had 5 thin streams of water. She had completely lost her face that this was the difference between them. Putting aside the fact that holy water could crush all spiritual water below level 9 spiritual water, it was very obvious that the other party's thigh was thicker than hers. Even if the level of the spiritual water he used was worlds apart from hers, it was too bad that the other party was stronger in actual combat. Arbor adjusted her state of mind and immediately flipped out of the pit. She looked at that person with a stoic face. The person called Brother 2 was an old man in his 60s. Half of his face was dark as he coldly glanced over. Chapter 13:17. From the looks of it, he was holding his head high and looking down on everything with disdain. It was truly impressive. Again, Arbor moved its little arms and legs inside the water spirit barrier and charged toward Brother 2 with a whoosh. How can the light of a grain of rice compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon? With one hand behind his back, Brother 2 fiercely struck out a palm at Arbor. A monstrous wave surged out from the center of his palm. It was truly an extremely powerful water spirit energy. Bang! The little fellow was once again hit by this huge wave. It somersaulted inside the water spirit barrier and was once again sent flying. It fell headfirst into another shallow pit. Our dear Xiao Mu's leg swayed. With a push of her hands, she immediately turned around and charged toward Brother 2 again. Hey, can I ask? Bang! How can the light of a grain of rice compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon? Hey, can I? Bang, bang. How can the light of a grain of rice compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon? Hey, can I? Bang. Duh. Huff, huff, huff. Brother 2 bent over and panted heavily. When eldest Qin and the others finally found Arbor, they saw this strange scene. There was a semicircle on the field. The little fellow was clearly fighting against a dozen people, but the situation was somewhat strange. Those dozen people looked as if they had eaten feces. Their faces were the yellow color of feces. As for the old man, standing in the middle of the semicircle, his face was as white as a sheet of paper, and he was panting heavily through his nostrils. Fuck, when you struck out with the same palm 13 times in a row and said the same sentence. Lighted a grain of rice, and the little person you regarded as an ant was still alive and kicking inside the water spirit barrier. You suddenly felt that life was hopeless. When this Brother 2 looked up and saw Arbor bouncing toward him while encased in the water spirit barrier, he couldn't help but raise his palm out of conditioned reflex. This slap actually didn't produce any spiritual energy. Fuck, his spiritual energy was exhausted. He had already drunk 2 bottles of spirit-returning liquid. This kind of spirit-returning liquid was sold at an extremely high price in the 6 prefectures. After drinking 2 bottles in a row, he touched his pocket and found that there was nothing left. Hey, let me finish what I want to say. Arbor finally found a chance to speak. Was there something wrong with this guy? He had tried to say a few words to him several times, but in the end, he was sent flying as soon as he tried. She squatted inside the water spirit barrier, and raised one of her small white hands in a slightly distressed manner, allowing 5 streams of water to drill between her fingers like thin snakes. "Hey, big bro, let me ask you something." As soon as Arbor opened his mouth, Eldest Sheen's group couldn't help but twitch their mouths. "How did you cultivate your water spiritual energy to such a large extent? Tell me, why is my water spirit so small?" she asked in distress. If Dian Dian was awake, she could rely on Dian Dian to support her and use a big move like water curtain shrouding the heavens, but could only be used once that she couldn't even create a decent water ball by herself. Controlling the earth spirit and wood spirit was slightly better. At least when the earth spirit was flipped over, it could form a shallow layer of soil. The wood spirit, on the other hand, was more adept at controlling it. The use of the vine whip had basically reached the point of perfection. Could it be that she had disliked little water before, so her control wasn't very good now? Arbor muttered in his heart and thought suspiciously. "Brother 2, I don't want to discuss the water spirit with you." On the side, Eldest Sheen couldn't help but burst out laughing after holding back for a while. Chapter 13:18. Arbor blinked at the dark-faced big brother through the water spirit barrier. "Why is it so small?" She seemed to be talking to herself, but also seemed to be in a hurry to find the big brother to clear her doubts. She couldn't help but shake her little hand. The water shuttled back and forth around her fingers, but didn't fall to the ground. Such fine control of the water spirit. She's still not satisfied. It looked like Brother 2 was about to spit out a mouthful of blood. Eldest Sheen couldn't help but laugh out loud first. "Jojo, you haven't stepped into the spirit realm yet." He couldn't help but want to remind this strange little fellow. "Strictly speaking, you're not a spirit master. The water spirit energy you're using is all due to good fortune." When Arbor heard this, she immediately wilted. Oh, she forgot about this. Brother 2 already had thoughts of retreating. He felt that the current situation was very unfavorable for them. He gave a look to the person beside him, and the group was about to retreat. Arbor suddenly rushed up and threw a punch of mystic energy at Brother 2's head. Brother 2 narrowed his eyes and crossed his fists in front of him to block. The mystic energy collision caused his entire body to sway slightly, but he didn't move at all. Of course, with his level 4 spirit master cultivation, he didn't fear the little fellow's mystic energy at all. "How can an ant move a big tree?" Brother 2 sneered. "Consider yourself lucky today. I'll let you off." Bang! He crossed his fists again, blocking the little fellow's fists flying at him at a rapid speed. "How can an ant move a big tree?" Bang! "How can an ant move a big tree?" Brother 2 staggered back 3 steps, his face flushed red. "Fuck, are you done yet?" Everyone, why did they feel this was inexplicably funny? After Arbor's 3 punches forced Brother 2 back several steps, she took a deep breath and unceasingly transferred the mystic energy in her branch meridians. She once again threw punch after punch at Brother Tuesday. Every punch was wrapped in level 14 mystic energy. Bang, bang, bang. She threw them at Brother Tuesday. "You hit me 13 times before, so I must return 26 punches to you. Courtesy demands reciprocity." Dong, 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 dong. A gust of wind from the fists was like a shadow, exploding like thunder and lightning. Everyone could only see the fists falling down like raindrops. At first, they could still see the little person twisting and turning inside the water barrier, jumping up and down. Following the heavy fist shadows, strong winds blew, and everyone was horrified to find that they couldn't even catch the trajectory of her movement. This guy seemed to be dancing a funny dance, but in fact, he was constantly punching and stepping, dodging and punching again. His speed was so fast that it made everyone present speechless. After a flurry of punches, no one could even tell if she had actually landed 26 punches or not. She swayed and took a few steps back. She made a gesture of gathering her chi in her dantian and pressing her hand down. She puffed up her cheeks and exhaled. Suddenly, she raised her chin and scolded. "How can the light of a firefly compete with the splendor of the sun and moon?" Everyone was speechless. Pooh! It was unknown who suddenly burst out laughing. But this laughter uncontrollably spread to the entire 100-man team. Why do I find this kid so funny? When they took a closer look, they couldn't help but be a little shocked while amused. That unlucky brother, too, was actually beaten into a pit by the little fellow's 26 punches. He lay there stiffly and couldn't move for a long time. Chapter 13:19. Even Brother 2 himself couldn't understand. He was clearly such a strong level 4 spiritual master. So how could he be beaten into a pit by a mystic cultivator girl? No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem possible. Unless this girl had consumed some spirit medicine beforehand. When normal people used 100% mystic energy to punch a few times, they would feel that their mystic energy was greatly depleted. Conservatively speaking, shouldn't they use it sparingly? But this girl? She punched 26 consecutive times. It didn't seem like it was just that. Brother 2 himself didn't even count how many times this girl had punched him. Every punch used 100% of his profound energy. Just where did this demon come from? Wouldn't Mystic Realm be depleted after using up so much mystic energy? Who would dare to expend their Mystic Realm like this? Weren't they afraid that their Mystic Realm would crack and their mystic meridians would be damaged, which would affect their future cultivation? He could now understand Old Monkey's feelings back then. It wasn't that Old Monkey didn't want to kill this girl, right? It was just that he didn't have the strength, just like how he was right now. He released his spirit beast, Fire Spirit Sparrow. The moment it appeared, it was restrained by the mysterious holy beast pressure on the girl's body. Right now, it only dared to crouch in a corner and tremble. How could it have any thoughts of fighting? This girl exuded a strange aura from head to toe, and she looked very evil. None of Old Monkey's companions could laugh at this time. They stared blankly as the girl lifted Brother 2 out of the pit and tightly clasped his neck with her fingers. Let me ask you something. A cough. Brother 2 only felt that his throat was very dry, and his arms drooped weakly. He felt that his arms were already crippled from continuously blocking the girl's punches just now. Where's Fan Shoha? The girl's voice sounded crisp, but even so, it still gave people an inexplicable chill. Where's Fan Shoha? She forced these words out from between her teeth. Every word made people feel a bone-piercing chill from the depths of their bones. Fan Shoha? Cough, cough, cough. Brother 2 shook his head, but in the next second, he felt a sharp pain from one of his arms. The girl twisted his left arm without a trace of pity in her eyes. She continued to ask icily, "Where did you hide Fan Shoha?" "I really didn't hide him. He is Fan. Ugh." Before Brother 2 could finish his sentence, an arrow shot from the sky and pierced his back. His eyes were wide open, and his face was filled with disbelief. Just like that, he fell face first into the deep pit. Xiao Mu felt her hair stand on end, and she abruptly turned her head away. Eldest Qin's terrified cry of "Jojo, be careful," reached his ears. Arbor instantly felt his body lighten. His small body that was wrapped in a water spiritual barrier was instantly clamped by a pair of claws. With a whoosh, he was sent flying into the sky. At the same time, Imo Lien and Duan Yu, who had sensed the auras of Arbor and the others, swiftly moved over. When he saw the scene in front of him, his expression changed, and he shouted, "Jojo!" The two people chased after her in bewilderment. They didn't even have time to greet Situ, E, and the rest before their figures swiftly flitted through the crowd one after the other, chasing after Xiao Mu in the direction that she had disappeared in. Xiao Mu's shoulder was grabbed by a black double-headed crow, and it flew higher and higher while carrying her. A pair of calves swayed back and forth inside the water spiritual barrier. Arbor's expression remained unchanged, but his eyes were solemn. Underscore, there's still 3 more chapters. You don't have to wait for me. It's almost midnight. Chapter 13:20. Flying at high altitudes didn't intimidate her at all. In any case, she had the protection of the water spirit barrier. No matter how high she flew, the astral winds couldn't rip her apart. At this moment, she could clearly see that a middle-aged woman with a black veil was sitting on the back of the two-headed crow. Fan Xiohe was sitting on the woman's back, grinning at her. Arbor felt a slight stinging pain in her eyes, as though blood was seeping out. She seemed to have vaguely seen this middle-aged woman in her dreams. However, she couldn't remember who she was. That black veil of the same style and color was enough to prove that she was the woman who had appeared in the abandoned hut in the Mystic Beast Forest. It was this malicious middle-aged woman who had killed the poison-tailed butterfly she had sent to follow Fan Xiohe. How annoying! Arbor's icy gaze swept over the woman and Fan Xiohe behind her. She curled her lips at Fan Xiohe, revealing a spurious sneer. It didn't look like a smile. Fan Xiohe was alarmed. For some reason, he felt that the young lady in front of him didn't have this kind of facial paralysis when she smiled from the bottom of her heart. Whoosh, whoosh! The two-headed crow let out a hoarse cry and flapped its wings, pulling Arbor along as it flew straight out of the city lord's manor. They flew all the way to a remote area of Jiaozhong Base before dropping her down. In front of them was a dilapidated temple entrance. 2 or 3 corpses lay haphazardly on the ground, their faces unrecognizable. When Arbor landed beside them, these corpses suddenly moved, and they abruptly raised their rotting hands to grab Xiao Mu. Arbor dodged with a sway and didn't even look at them, even though these corpses were standing up shakily from the ground and gathering toward her as though they had smelled raw meat. Kiki, the middle-aged woman, let out a distorted laugh. It didn't seem like her real voice, but rather like a voice that had been altered with drugs. "Young lady, you're so brave," the middle-aged woman said with a smile. "You're not the least bit frightened when facing me alone. As expected, you're quite something." Arbor shut herself in the water spirit barrier and let the corpse hags pounce on her and scratch her through the water spirit barrier. It was extremely funny. It was like looking at a piece of fat meat in front of his eyes. He could almost eat it with his mouth open, but in reality, he couldn't touch it at all. He could only stare anxiously. Arbor glanced at her. "You think you can torture me to death with these things?" After the series of battles just now, only a fool would not understand how strong she was. If this woman had mindlessly brought her here just to lock her up with the zombies, then she would look down on her. Because these little toys couldn't kill her at all. "I admit that you are very strong." The middle-aged woman narrowed her eyes and looked at her with a smile. "But this is far from enough. This world is far more vast than what you see. There are some people in this world you can't afford to offend." "Like you?" Arbor mocked. The middle-aged woman wasn't angered by her. Instead, she nodded. "Like me." Suddenly, a spiraling fire dragon appeared behind her. Its flying claws rose up, and the dragon's roar reverberated. She thought she would see Arbor's face reveal a look of horror. However, how could Arbor, who had seen the physical golden dragon's true body, be intimidated by a mere virtual fire dragon? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.